All right, good afternoon, everybody. Glad you came tonight, and welcome to our July, I'm sorry,
It is 80 degrees.
it is, I think it is November, the last I looked, and so thank you. I think it was 83 today or something like that. I'm like, you've got to be kidding. But anyway, thank y'all for coming. We got a great meeting tonight, and we're going to get started with our new um, tradition of having clergy pray. And tonight we're honored to have our good friend, Pastor Ken Tilley, Crosslink Community Church. Would you join me as we pray? Lord, we thank you so much for this opportunity that we have to come before you tonight. God, we thank you for this council. We thank you for how they represent Mebane well. And Father, as we come to you tonight, we pray that you would give them wisdom and discernment, Lord, as they operate on behalf of Mebane. We pray all these things in the precious and powerful name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Thank you, sir. Amen. All right, before we get started, we've got some introductions, and I will start off with Preston.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. We want to introduce our public information officer, our first ever public information officer, Kelly Hunter with the city of Mebane, as she's coming forward. I know city council already has information on her career trajectory. Obviously, we're excited to have someone of her caliber. She's coming to us from WNCT Channel 9 in Greenville, North Carolina. Before that, had stops in other parts of the state. The interesting thing that is worth noting is she is somewhat familiar with Mebane, as she's originally from Wake County and obviously has experienced Mebane. So at this time, we'd like to introduce Mebane's Public Information Officer, Kelly Hunter.
So, good evening, everyone. As Preston said, my name is Kelly Hunter, and I'm elated to be here in Mebane serving as your new public information officer. I look forward to meeting and building relationships with you all so we can continue to foster the positively charming atmosphere that makes up our great city. Please feel free to stop by my office anytime or connect with me online so we can get to know one another better. Thank you.
Welcome, Kelly. And we also have the honored Dan Shannon, who is head of our DMDC Main Street Board. He's got an introduction tonight.
Thank you, Mayor, and greetings, Council. Yeah, I am actually just ecstatic to be able to introduce our new Executive Director of Downtown Mebane Development Corporation, Barbara Hollerand. Barbara comes with a wealth of experience. She started out, she's from a transplant from Florida as of August, coming to North Carolina. She has over 25 years of experience in city government. She started out in Main Street and the program, and she ended in Florida in Main Street program. So a wealth of experience. She came with the highest recommendation from the state representative for Main Street as well. So that says a lot for itself there too. Yeah, and she has a bachelor's degree in public relations from the University of Florida and an MBA from Rollins College. She's also a certified public manager. Barbara and I were talking today, and she actually started October the 3rd, and that was the first council meeting that was the council meeting in October. So we certainly invited her to come, but she had to be incognito in the back because we weren't ready to introduce her and didn't want to put her on the spot too much. But tonight you can put her on the spot. But Barbara's wonderful. We were talking today, and it's like, it's like she's been here for 6 months to a year. I mean, she has just fit like a glove with the group, accepted well, and it's just a delight to be here. So I'm going to turn it over to Barbara just to say a quick hello, and just if you have any questions.
Thank you, Dan. Hello, Mayor and Council staff. I am just overjoyed to be here. I have never experienced such an outpouring of hospitality in my life. And I love your community. I love your downtown, and I love your people. And I'm really looking forward to being a part of its future. Preston reminded me to give a plug for our next ribbon cutting tomorrow, every Tuesday at 10:30. You can head downtown and learn about a different shop. And it's amazing that there's been like 15, 16 different businesses that opened downtown in the pandemic. And that tells me that people feel like, I'm going to take a chance here because it's a community that they want to be a part of. And, with all the risks, they went ahead and did it. So, really enjoying doing that. And again, if you have any questions for me at any time about anything, please reach out to me. Thank you so much.
Good. Well, thank you. Before you get, Dan, before you sit down, I'd like to read this proclamation. Proclamation by the mayor of the city of Mebane promoting Small Business Saturday. Whereas the city of Mebane celebrates our local small businesses and the contributions they make to our local economy and community. And whereas according to the United States Small Business Administration, there are 32.5 million small businesses in the United States. Small businesses represent 99.7% of firms with paid employees. Small businesses are responsible for 62% of the net new jobs created since 1995. And small businesses employ 46.8% of the employees in the private sector. Whereas 79% of the consumers understand the importance of supporting the small businesses in their community on Small Business Saturday. 70% report the day makes them want to encourage others to shop small, independently owned retailers, and 66% report that the day makes them want to shop small all year long. Whereas 58% of the shoppers reported they shopped online with small business, and 54% reported they dined or ordered takeout from a small restaurant, bar, or cafe on Small Business Saturday in 2021. And whereas Mebane, North Carolina supports our local businesses that create jobs, boost our local economy, and preserve our communities. And whereas advocacy groups, as well as public and private organizations across the country, have endorsed the Saturday after Thanksgiving as Small Business Saturday. Now, therefore, I, Ed Hooks, Mayor of the City of Mebane, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim November 26, 2022 as Small Business Saturday, and urge all the residents in our community and communities across the country to support small businesses and merchants on Small Business Saturday and throughout the year. Sealed, signed, and delivered the 7th day of November. Ed Hooks, Mayor. This is in addition. Thank you. I want to give it to y'all because y'all represent a lot of the small businesses in Mebane, but it is for everybody in the city of Mebane, small businesses. So thank y'all for what you do.
Amen.
I'm probably going to get in trouble for this, Mayor. I'm not trying to step on your toes, but I do want to say that tremendous support from the community and its leaders. Mayor, you didn't want to talk about this, but I did want to say, there's a lot of great stuff going on with Mebane, the city of Mebane, and the destination or the Downtown Mebane Development Corporation. We have to practice that more. There's too much DMDC and DDM and XYZ and MOUSE. But Mayor Hooks on his own has reached out to our group personally and has donated $5,000 of his own personal money for the DMDC. And we really sincerely appreciate that. That goes into our general fund, and we're trying to build funds for the coming years. Daphne, you're back there backing me up on that general fund. We need to make sure we build up. We also have another major contributor of a $5,000 for the DMDC as well. We just appreciate the support that we're getting from the community and its leaders. And I did think it was important for the council to know as well, too, that, this really has been a tremendous startup, and Barbara has just walked right into the position and is doing a phenomenal job. So, Mayor, thank you, and thanks to the City Council for your time here as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. All right, let's move on to public comments, and we have two tonight. Mr. Colin Cannell. That's not right.
What do you mean it's not right?
How are you, sir?
Good, how you doing? Mr. Mayor, members of the council, it's great to address you. This morning, I was addressing the Alamance County Commissioners, who are much more fearsome to address than y'all are. And I was addressing them on the topic of revising or revaluing their scheduled values for the property taxes. So that is coming up. They've been getting ready to do that, but even now at the 11th hour, when that schedule of values is just about ready, I still am not sure that there are the votes on that commission to move that forward this year. Some of them are very concerned about the recession. Thomas from your paper was there. He'll be able to back me up on that. And I bring it up. I know it's a bit of a digression, but I bring it up because the tax values that are covered in that revaluation, which may or may not happen, are intimately tied to something that this council has been doing a lot, which is a practice called payment in lieu. And that's what I want to talk about. So I'm sure you all know the UDO like the back of your hand, being on the council, but just for the benefit of the audience. So when a developer comes before the council and wants to develop a subdivision, the UDO requires that developer to set aside a certain amount of the parcel of land as public recreation area. There's a certain number of acres they have to set aside. And the UDO, however, also allows the developer to make a payment to the city of a certain dollar value in lieu of doing that. So instead of setting aside public open green space, the developer can make a payment of money to the city and keep that space for the use of their residents alone. And the amount of money which is set, which they pay to the city is set by ordinance as the assessed tax value of the land which would have been set aside. Now, because the revaluation has not occurred and the land in Alamance County has not been revalued since 2017, those tax values are very low. And the thing that concerns me, however, is that this ordinance is really designed as a kind of an escape hatch or a release valve. It's designed to be used in case there is something unsuitable about the property or there's just something that doesn't quite work. And this is available as an exception or something to do. But what has been happening is that this body has been accepting those payments quite frequently this year. So for example, Hawfield's Landing, or I think is called, or crossing, I can't remember, Leoterra, they were supposed to dedicate 13.5 acres to public recreation space. Instead, they paid the city $105,000. Let's see, the First Street townhomes, they were supposed to dedicate 2 acres. Instead, they paid the city $70,000. There's a developer here tonight supposed to dedicate 5.5 acres. They are proposing to pay $16,000. I'm not even going to get into that right now. And then there are other developers around the north of the city who in payment in lieu, instead of dedicating open space, have been contributing to the multimodal path. In fact, I'm not even sure that there is a developer who's come before the council this year that has actually dedicated public recreational space. And I am becoming concerned because the way that the UDO is designed, the reason it requires that public recreational space in those subdivisions is so that the people who are living there will have green, walkable space, park space close to their homes. And if the city continues to accept payment in lieu, not to mention payment in lieu that is ludicrously undervalued for what the city is giving up, what we're going to end up with is a bunch of very tightly developed private subdivisions that are going to be very widely spaced from the parks that those citizens are supposed to use, because the city will not be able to buy the land on which those parks are supposed to go with the money being dedicated for those parks. So in conclusion, I would like the council to start very carefully considering when a developer comes and asks for payment in lieu, whether that is really an appropriate approach in that particular situation.
Thank you, Colin. The next person, anybody want to comment on that or just move on? All right, we'll move on. Next one is Mike Davis.
Mine's not quite as involved as that. Mine's pretty simple. Mayor, just wants to come say thank you for, recently, we've done several projects, and Keith and his team and Jamie Joseph and some of those guys in inspections have really been very, very helpful with some projects that really had some real uniquenesses. We do work for the hospital all the time. And over at Cone Health, we had some really strange things that required some weekends and some real unusual calling upons of them to come in and do some inspections. I was talking to Chris about this several weeks ago, and he didn't tell me to do this, but we talked about a way that I could just say thanks instead of just being able to come and take a minute and say thanks. So we got some other things we're hoping will happen in Mebane this next coming piece of time. But anyway, I just want to come say to let you guys know that just to say thanks on the phone, and the ladies down there that we work with and the planning folks, this children's garden, Montessori school down here in front of the food line. We just finished that a few weeks ago, and they were really under the gun when we got involved. They were behind schedule and was able to help pull that out. And that would have never happened if the inspection department didn't come and help us. So I was talking to Chris and just wanted to come say thanks. So
Good.
if you
Thank you,
pass that
sir.
along to everybody. It was been very, very helpful working with the staff and everybody there. So anyway,
Thank you.
Thank you all very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
We do have a great staff, and thank you for your comments. All right, we're moving on to consent agenda.
My apologies. I was unaware of the procedure to speak at the open comments. May I have a moment?
Yes, come on.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
My name's Jay Starnes. I live at 701 Fairway Drive in the Arrowheads Green subdivision. I've been the president of the HOA of 236 homes for the last 6 years, 7 years of which the owners have been running the HOA. 2015 or so, we had to petition the city and or part of the government to put stop signs in 4 years after I built the house in the neighborhood. We're at a point now where we've had conversations, one or two offhand, with a council member or two, or even passing by. We'd like to do like you did on London Lane and paint some stop sign lines on our streets. We'd like to have some crosswalk lines painted from our sidewalks going there. Our biggest problem right now, and I have a plethora of videos of cars running stop signs. We have 2 4-way stop signs set up, and we have a 3-way stop sign set up. One day, some kid is going to unfortunately get hurt if we can't make it more promotable to stop, to slow down, to do that. Again, we started this in 2015 just to get the stop signs there. Now we got it and we appreciate that, but we'd love to see what it is. And I don't know the formality, but I'd love to learn the formality of how do I go about and ask the city assistance. My last comment that I heard about it was paint was too expensive. And I just watched the city pave 17 roads and put lines and stop lines on all them 17 miles of roads that we just did. So having said that, thank you for your time, sir.
Please get in touch with our assistant city manager or our city manager, and they'll be glad to help you.
Very well. I will.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Council.
Thank you. All right, moving on to consent agenda. We're going to pull item D out of the consent agenda. So that will not be considered among everything in the consent agenda. So the consent agenda is the approval of minutes of October 3rd, the final plat of Bowman Place, the final plat of Summer Haven, final plat of St. Bart's, a petition for voluntary contiguous annexation, the American Rescue Plan resolution, and last but not least, the quarterly financial report from July to September. Any comments from the council? Any discussion? If not,
Make a motion, we approve the consent agenda minus item D, is that correct?
Second.
we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion?
I would like to just say Sarah Bradley is no relationship to me.
And she's very happy. I'm kidding. Yeah, so we have a motion and a second. If no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. 4A, the final plat of Buckhorn Business Center, and I think Franz is going to handle that for us.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Buckhorn Industrial LLC has submitted a plat for 3 lots. Would like to do an early recording of the plat. Um, Lots 2 and 3 would be home to a 220,000 square foot industrial building and a 330,000 square foot industrial building. In order to get building permits is what they're after, the plat has to be recorded. The improvements are not completed at this time. The construction drawings have been approved by Mebane TRC. We do have permits in place. We do have a driveway permit with NCDOT. So what they would like to do would be to bond all improvements this time because they don't think that they'll be through with those until summer, late spring, early summer, and they want to get started on those buildings. So in considering that, they had set up a meeting with the fire department to talk about emergency access. They've guaranteed installing the emergency access where you can get to both buildings, which is a requirement from Chief Lewis and the department. The developer plans on installing the public roadway and water line and storm drain and whatnot. At the same time, he's building his infrastructure on each site. Developer's not selling the lots. He's recording them and building buildings on those lots. The public water and sewer are already on site. They were installed when Petro first came to City of Mebane. So there's no off-site water and sewer improvements or easements related to that need to be obtained. And there are no roadway improvements required on Buckhorn other than the connection that per their design drawings that they have provided. So the UDO allows council to waive certain items to be installed with bonding. That is attached to a handout I gave you at the back of the last page if you want to look at that. But typically on some of that, we do allow the streetscape and the sidewalk and the stormwater management devices to remain bonded after the public improvements. Can't plant streetscape in 100-degree weather in the summer. The ponds that are built can't be converted until everything is stabilized, and that takes time. So typically we allow that to be bonded along with the subdivision improvement agreement, a minimum of 2 years, and that may be extended. So that is the request that is before you, and staff does not have a problem with them based on the reasoning that I laid out. Any questions?
No COs can be issued until,
All the public improvements are in, and then the remaining landscaping and pond conversions, we have issued COs with those remaining bonded.
Any other questions?
as long as the fire chief, is okay with the access and they're fully bonded, I don't have a problem with it, especially if COs can't be issued until the upgrades are made. So I'd make a motion to waive the requirements in lieu of bond for the UTO.
All right, we have a motion. We have a second. We have a second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Fran.
Thank you, Mayor, Council.
All right, moving to public hearing and conditional rezoning R10 and R20 to R12 CD, Tupelo North. Hey,
Hey,
good to have you tonight.
good evening. Ashley Oinby, Development Director. Feel free to interrupt if you have any trouble hearing me. Before you is a request from Lebanon Road 3 LLC to rezone 2 properties which total just over 87 acres. They are currently zoned R10 and R20. The R10 zoning reflects a previous approval from 2005 for a special use permit to allow for a single-family residential subdivision. Vested rights to that approval have expired. The requested rezoning is for R12 conditional district. As you can see, the surrounding zoning is largely residential. There is R12 conditional to the south, which is the Tupelo Junction subdivision approved in August 2020. The properties are located in the General Watershed Area Overlay District, which means there are built-upon area restrictions that apply. The properties are located in Mebane's extraterritorial jurisdiction. They are on the border of the ETJ and in Orange County. Currently, the properties are being used for a single-family home, which has a driveway connection to Saddle Club Road. It has historically been used as a bee farm and is forested. There is floodplain on the property along with streams. Immediately surrounding the two properties are large lot, single-family residential properties to the north and east, and additionally vacant and forested land. There are residential subdivisions in the immediate area, including Tupelo Junction mentioned previously, which is to the south, and then Retreat Lake Michael, Havenstone, and Stagecoach Corner are recent approvals. The properties are located in the secondary growth strategy area as identified by Mebane by Design, which is our comprehensive land development plan. The green seen here on the screen indicates conservation area that is identified in our planning documents when there is contiguous forest cover. The request before you is for R12 conditional district to allow for a residential cluster development of 207 single-family homes. The street network would include 5-foot sidewalk on one side of all streets. Additionally, there is a public multi-use path network proposed running through the middle of the site, and there are traffic calming devices that intersect with that multi-use path. There's just over 37 acres of private open space dedicated here, and there would be a continuation of Tupelo Junction in terms of the street network. There are no new driveway access points proposed as the driveway entrances for Tupelo Junction would be used. Additionally, the subdivision required a traffic impact analysis, which was reviewed by NCDOT and city staff. The results of that analysis require the developer provide a right turn lane on Lebanon Road at the intersection with Stagecoach Road. However, given concerns with that intersection, the developer has committed to completing a signal warrant analysis to see if a traffic signal would better serve that intersection and if it would be warranted. As a conditional rezoning, this request is site specific. Additionally, there are certain conditions the developer is requesting, including some deviations from dimensional requirements typically required of the R12 zoning district. So there would be a slight reduction in lot width, along with some reduction in side, corner side, and rear setbacks. Finally, the UDO requires that just under 6 acres of public recreation area be required. The developer is proposing nearly a half acre through a public multi-use path, with the additional public recreation area being provided via a payment in lieu, which is allowed by the UDO. I will turn it over to the applicant for presentation.
Thank you, Ashley.
All right. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. Alrighty. My name is Tim McAvinney. I'm with EarthCentric Engineering. I'll be presenting this evening on behalf of James Parker and the Lebanon Road LLC, who are the developers for Tupelo Junction North. This is just a little kind of wider view, which shows a little more detail than some of what Ashley was showing. We've got our site here. Some of the other landmarks, here's Lake Michael down here. We've got the Havenstone developments over here. Here's the Mill Creek Golf Course. And we're also showing, this is actually something we got from city staff, showing some of the other potential development on the north side of Mebane that's currently under design or consideration by various parties. We've got the some further development possibly of Mill Creek that I'll be talking about a little bit. And again, this is Tupelo Junction, the south portion here. The road network, we've got Stagecoach Road here, which goes into Lebanon Road, and then we've got Saddle Club Road coming up here, just so everybody's oriented. Just another a quick view of both Tupelo Junction and Tupelo Junction North, just to kind of show how this is a continuation of Tupelo Junction. The landowner and the developers, for various reasons, decided to split the property up into two different transactions. And so here we are now with kind of the continuation of Tupelo Junction. Here's a little closer view of our site. So the current zoning, as Ashley said, is R10 and R20. It was previously zoned as part of, or rezoned to R10 as part of the Landing at Lake Michael project around 2005. They didn't split up the property exactly as it's being split up now, but our portion of the property that's Tupelo North originally had about 170 lots in the R10 configuration. And they had lots generally in the 10,000 to 16,000 square foot size with minimal open space. For the most part, like around the perimeter of the site, the lots themselves would back up to the perimeter property lines of the site. We're proposing an R12 conditional zoning, 207 lots in a cluster subdivision arrangement. Our lot sizes will be 7,200 to just under 11,000 square feet, and we'll be providing 37.7 acres of open space. The conditional zoning is required due to the cluster development nature, and also because we're requesting waivers for reduced lot area as part of the cluster development, lot width, side setbacks, rear setbacks, and the previously mentioned public recreation payment in lieu. Again, the site is 87.73 acres. This came up at planning board. They were curious. That's only 4 acres of that are R20. That's kind of the existing house and access out to Saddle Club Road, and the remainder of the site is R10, and that's the 83 acres. We're proposing to develop just over 50 acres of that. That's between the road and the lots. And we will be providing 37 acres of open space. That splits up into a 57-43% breakdown between lots and open space on the site. We're providing the mentioned half an acre public recreation space, which is basically the multi-use path. And as Ashley mentioned, we're in the Cape Fear Graham Mebane non-critical watershed, so we have a 30% built upon area impervious limit. Our lot yield, if the entire 87 acres were developed as R12, the maximum we could get would be 318 lots. That would be 3.63 lots per acre. What we're proposing is 207 lots, which breaks down to 2.36 lots per acre. We'll be doing it in 2 phases, 129 lots in the first phase and 78 lots in the second phase.
How would these phases work with the Tupelo Junction phases?
I believe Tupelo Junction will be built out to the property line before we begin the next portion. All of our access is through Tupelo Junction, so we can't really start until they're kind of up to us. So talking about access, we'll be accessing it through the Tupelo Junction site. The accesses to Tupelo Junction are on Lebanon Road and Saddle Club Roads. We're also proposing a connection to the future Mill Creek subdivision in the northwest corner of the site. That'll be a crossing of Mill Creek with road, multi-use path, and utilities, and there'll be a developer shared cost agreement with the preserve at Mill Creek for that. We have 2 potential future connections out to the eastern property line that currently we're terminating with a temporary cul-de-sac. And there are the Lebanon Road, Stagecoach Road intersection improvements identified by the TIA, and I'll kind of get to what's going on there. So this is our access. Again, the main access is down here through Tupelo Junction. This will be the crossing of Mill Creek up here that connects towards the preserve at Mill Creek, which is the proposed in the works expansion to the Mill Creek Golf Course subdivision. And then out to the east, these are potential future connections if this property over on this side develops. These cul-de-sacs can be converted just to a roads going straight through. If that's something that happens if that's some development that happens out there in the future.
Since those three connections are all potential for the future, for tonight, we just view the two green connections as the access.
Correct. Yes. Although the connection to Mill Creek is going to be required if they to connect to the development up here. That is part of what we've discussed with staff. If that does develop up there, I should say. So this is what was in your packets for the road improvements from our traffic impact analysis. What the traffic impact analysis did identify was a decreased level of service here at the Stagecoach Road, Lebanon Road intersection. We were on October Planning Board. We had delayed the TIA until September so that we could capture the school traffic and get a complete picture of what the traffic situation out there would be with buses and everything going. And so we finished this up just before Planning Board. We identified that a turn lane would be a solution to improving service at that intersection. And then subsequently, in providing this to the DOT, it turns out they had some other ideas. They had some future plans for that intersection. And they were thinking something more along the lines of a traffic light here at the intersection would be more appropriate. So what we are committing to is going through that traffic light warrant process and seeing it's fairly likely that a traffic light will be the result of that analysis here. If not, then we will fall back on the right turn lane to improve conditions at that intersection. So
who and when makes the final determination on that traffic light?
that'll be with city staff as part of the construction plan process.
Okay.
So it's going to be, we're definitely committed to improvements at that intersection. It's just gotten a little more complicated as to what the best solution there is. So we're going to work that out with DOT, who we have to consult anyway with any improvements out on their roads, regardless. Sure.
So to clarify, NCDOT has procedures such as signal warrant analysis and different things that will have to be studied to determine if that signal light can be installed per their procedures and their methodology. So that would be the next step. We have discussed with the engineer, city staff has discussed with NCDOT, the engineer and the developer, a voluntary condition, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Ashley, if the signal warrant analysis and NCDOT says the signal light does not occur or cannot occur, the turn lane would happen after probably the 50th or 75th, probably 75th building permit issued for Tupelo North. If the signal light is warranted, that would happen, we've discussed, after the 101st building permit is issued for Tupelo North. In this case, it would be either or. The developer, who is an engineer himself, has estimated the cost for both projects is about the same. So we do appreciate his willingness to take this an either or approach tonight as a voluntary condition he's offering for approval, which would not require him to have to come back or the project come back for approval to do the signal light or the turn lane. Also, DOT stress the turn lane and the signal light will be constructed by the developer, not the NCDOT.
So is the question whether it's needed, or is there some feasibility of a traffic light that's in question here?
It could be both. DOT, from the TIA, the only thing that was required from the traffic impact analysis is the right turn lane. However, taken into overall analysis of it, a signal light will address what the right turn lane does and more. So the first step would be a warrant analysis and looking at NCDOT procedures to make sure a signal light is justified there.
I feel like it's worth, I'm sorry. I was just going to jump in and say, I feel like it's worth noting too, that this intersection, the way it is laid out now, would actually not be allowed, the Lebanon Road, Stagecoach Road, right? Because of the angle. I know right now, at this point, like if new roads are being constructed, the turns have to be more perpendicular than this one is. So I'm glad to see some sort of improvement potentially happen.
My question is, Preston, who's going to monitor at the time the 101st building permit or 50th or whatnot? You have a tracking system?
We do. And with our inspections and planning department, we do that quite a bit. It's a great question. We do that quite a bit with our other projects. We now, in the past, they were tied to phases. Now they're tied to individual building permits. So what would happen is most likely the signal, let's say a signal light did occur. Most likely the developer is going to be anticipating that and moving well before the 101st building permit is pulled, because usually he or she wants to pull that 102nd, 103rd, and so forth building permit. But we do monitor it in partnership with NCDOT.
Mr. Mitchell, not to proclaim this, but is this forward-looking from the DOT, forward-looking planning from the DOT? Not guaranteeing anything, but possibility?
I would definitely say it's forward-looking perspective that the City of Mebane and Division and District Office, we oftentimes try to do it. It is probably another example of a small area transportation plan. Our development director points out the development in this area being connected via multi-use path, and that's an excellent question as well, Councilmember Ewan. But it's that's an example of a small area transportation plan similar to Cameron Lane, Wilson Road, small area transportation plan. And obviously now with potential off-sites improvements, you could probably classify this as a North Mebane small area transportation plan. Long-winded answer to say yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Any other questions on this slide? All right. Anyway, this is basically what we were talking about a minute ago. All of the development since then. The only thing that's incorrect on this slide, I think, is that again, this has been moving kind of quickly. So this payment in lieu for improvements at the intersection, I think, is kind of off the table now. We've kind of moved past that idea onto better ideas that the signal light or the turn lane are really better ideas.
Sorry, that slide also mentions a compact roundabout. Is that on the table or is that off the table now?
That's likely off the table. It would be, we've been discussing that, and there would probably have to be some additional right-of-way acquisitions there. Compact isn't necessarily as compact as compact isn't necessarily a small, it's just small for a roundabout. Also the grade out there kind of precludes it. You've got some super elevation on that turn. Roundabouts like to be flat, so when the road is kind of super elevated through there, that would make doing that kind of difficult.
Isn't it quite rocky over there too?
That has been something. So there would need to be some regrading out there, which could run into problems, and also kind of given the speed limits and just the kind of the general traffic pattern out there, we think that the roundabout could kind of come as a surprise to the drivers, which can cause some issues as well. So
I
with
agree
that,
with all those comments. Maybe in the future, it'd just be best to not even put it on the slide if it's, yeah.
things have been moving quickly. There have been developments this week since we had to turn in the slides, and it's all kind of in process. So some other public improvements. We will be on public water and sewer. The city has determined that there are adequate public water and sewer capacities for the development. Water will be supplied by 8-inch, and possibly 12-inch water connections from Tupelo Junction. We're looking at potentially extending a 12-inch water main north through the site into the future Mill Creek development. And there is, that would create a large loop into the existing Mill Creek development eventually. Also, public sewer will be connecting to an 8-inch that's in the southern portion of Tupelo Junction, and a new 12-inch outfall that's going to go through the Mill Creek property is also going to be part of the developer agreement along with the crossing. We're also going to be speaking to the city. These, especially the water sizes, are tentative. That's all going to be based on calculations that we'll have to go through. And if the city is interested in upsizing those, there could be some payments to the developer for upsizing them to allow for the city's future uses for some of the water, if they decide that that's a good use. So what that looks like is this will all be 8-inch water and sewer throughout the site. The potential for the 12-inch water comes up through here and then into the Mill Creek development. And I believe way up in the Mill Creek development, there's another 12-inch line that possibly we could be we'll be making connection up that way. It's just a question calculation wise, whether it would be 12-inch or 8-inch. We have 8-inch sewer kind of for the southern portion of the site. It's going to go through Tupelo South. This is a section of sewer that they're already going to be building. And then we're going to be building an outfall coming down here to the existing sewer that runs along the Lake Michael outfall. And this will be through the Mill Creek property. We'll be crossing the creek up here at this crossing, so that'll provide connection for the Mill Creek development. It'll also provide a potential future connection for this property up here. The road cross section will be the standard 31-foot back of curb to back of curb cross section with a 5-foot sidewalk on one side. And we're also including some traffic calming measures. We'll have a multi-use path greenway trail. This is a 10-foot wide paved trail that's part of the Mebane Bike and Pedestrian Plan. We'll be connecting to trails through the southern portion of Tupelo Junction. It will extend to the Mill Creek property and then includes a crossing at the northwest corner. We'll have an additional trail that runs along the Duke Energy power line easement with a connection to the neighborhood amenity building and pool where the mail kiosks are. And we'll also have access easements for future trail extensions. So the Tupelo Junction South has multi-use trail that comes up here to this point. We'll be continuing it along the creek through here. Then the creek kind of continues over onto the Mill Creek property where the city's master plan for the multi-use trail kind of shows it following the creek through there. It'll join up again kind of in the northwest corner of our property and cross with the at this combined crossing here onto the preserve at Mill Creek, or, excuse me, property.
And that would be paved.
Yes, it's a 10-foot paved trail.
And obviously for right now, it would stop at your property line.
That's correct. Yep. So then we have, the other button's correct here. The other portion of the multi-use trail that we'll be doing goes down, there's a Duke power line easement for high voltage lines that kind of crosses the site here. We're going to make use of that with the multi-use trail through there. We'll provide a kind of a spur 10-foot trail to the pool amenity over here. We'll be doing a payment in lieu for an extension to the property line over here, rather than just have this one dead end at the property. We'll just do a payment in lieu for that portion of the trail. And then we're also going to dedicate an access easement in discussion with staff. We have this access that comes down here to Saddle Club, which is a potential connection for the multi-use path to Saddle Club, if it turns out that the multi-use path doesn't just continue to follow the power line easement out to Saddle Club Road, which is over here. So we've got two options for it to get to Saddle Club and any potential development out that direction.
And will this be paved?
Yes. Yeah, all of the 10-use multi-use path is a paved path.
And this is all approved by Duke Power to put this on their easement?
It is not approved by Duke Power yet. They can't approve it until we get to the full construction plan stage. We have been in communication with them. I've got an email from them if you're interested. It's just kind of a agreement in principle that this is something that complies with their plans. We've got a sheaf of papers that are their requirements for putting a trail through the power line easement. It's a fairly common thing. We have to do things like so that the trucks can cross into the easement if they need to. We have to beef up the first part of the trail so that they can get those 80,000-pound trucks up on there. We have to stay away 25 feet away from the towers and things like that. They've got a bunch of rules, and we have to show them grading plans. We also have to show them utility crossings where just the water, sewer, and storm is kind of going across the easement. So that's all stuff that has to happen at the construction plan phase before they can improve it.
Okay.
So, but we have been talking to them and
okay. But in general, this is something they're in favor of.
Yes.
I would have just assumed that working with them on something like this would be extremely complicated.
Yeah, it'll be a little complicated, but not too bad. Their requirements are fairly reasonable. They just want to see details. Let's see, further project components. We'll have a storm drain system. All the roads are curb and gutter with an engineered piped storm drainage system. We'll have swales between lots. Roof drains will be directed to the storm drain system and the stormwater control measures as needed, just so we can capture all of the roof drainage if necessary. It doesn't run off and not go to the SCMs. Again, we do have a 30% impervious area limit. Preliminary stormwater calculations say that we need about a half an acre of stormwater control measures divided up into 4 basins, and the final determination on size and type of those will be made again at construction plan. That's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 stormwater control devices.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Preston, can you, or actually, kind of go over the difference between the 37 acres of open space as opposed to the 5.4 acres of dedicated recreational space? I mean, this is in relationship to the concerns of a previous speaker tonight. My understanding has always been that payment in lieu of for public recreation space was because it was useless to have a bunch of little subdivisions around everywhere that had 4 or 5 acres when it didn't really amount to anything public recreation. So we allowed a payment in lieu of. That money was taken to place toward parks. But the previous speaker seemed to indicate that that really netted down the open space. But in fact, in this case, there's 34 acres of 37 acres of open space as opposed to the 5.4. Am I, in all my years on council, have I gotten it wrong concerning the public recreation space on these subdivisions?
Mr. Bradley, you are correct. In making calculations, the open space is a different calculation than the public recreation space. This is a cluster development. The open space is determined based on the density and how they have designed their subdivision. It has to make up for the difference between a 12,000 square foot lot and the 7,200 square foot lot they're proposing. The public recreation calculation is completely different and is based on the number of lots and the size of the property. So.
Also, Mayor Pro Tem Bradley, I think this may be a question you're asking, and I'll try not to speak for the Recreation and Parks Director, but we've had this discussion in the past. Centralized parks are a more efficient service, in his opinion, as well, too, as opposed to minor parks that may not have restrooms and many amenities. Many small parks, the city, most local governments actually operate larger parks in a industry standard distance to one another. And I think you're asking both the question about open space and the question about taking the payment in lieu of to have more centralized, higher level of service parks as opposed to having many small parks that don't provide many amenities. Am I correct on that?
Well, and that was my thought process, and has been for years, that, payment in lieu wasn't an avoidance of providing public recreation space, but a better way to apply the money. But it's absolutely separate from open space, which is, okay. Thank you for that clarification.
They have to require, both is required, so.
I think something else the gentleman said too, was that if we did a payment in lieu for public recreation space, that there was no place in the neighborhood for these residents to recreate. It was my understanding that the public recreation space meant it was a park for anyone from anywhere in Mebane to recreate. And, these folks will have, they can use the open space. We'll have I haven't gotten to the amenity buildings, but we have those. We have the multi-use trail will be open to anybody, but obviously it'll be most convenient to these folks. But they do have recreation options in the neighborhood for the residents of this neighborhood. And then, like everyone was saying, we think it's generally better to pool that other money for larger, more impressive public parks for, instead of a bunch of penny packet little public parks around the city.
Is it fair to delineate too that like with the difference between the private and the public space, the private is upon the responsibility of the HOA to maintain and
That's correct.
preserve, versus the public, is the public multi-use path going to be on the city to maintain and preserve?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct, because that'll be part of our multi-use path system. So.
I think that's another consideration for you all too, is probably larger parks are easier for you to maintain than a bunch of kind of distributed parks around too. So
I guess to clarify, we typically take these multi-use paths once there's a justification of a significant amount connected and a trailhead as well too. So south of the interstate at some subdivisions, there are multi-use paths there that have been part of the approval process. They are part of the HOA's maintenance until a significant or justified amount is there with trailheads and different opportunities to become part of the city system then.
I think the earlier speakers, one comment he made is pretty sticks, and that is we really need to make sure that our calculations for payment in lieu keep up with inflation and cost of properties. If it was based on $20,000 an acre and they're going for $60,000 an acre, we may need to make sure the formulas kept pace. But I did have the understanding that putting money toward big parks was better on recreation than them trying to administer and keep up small parks. That had always been my understanding.
Can you clarify the calculation of payment in lieu just for all of our benefit?
It is based on the assessed value of the property. So Mr. Bradley is correct that the property may be currently assessed at a lower value than what it would potentially sell for.
And this is probably a question for another time, and I think the city manager was getting ready to reference it. You have to be very careful on what figures you use related to court cases.
So I would just say that this summer, we changed that calculation to based on the ad valorem value that the county has on it. For many years in the past, it was based on, my memory was a study that was done out of Texas that a lot of other cities, not just in North Carolina and Texas, followed, but it was sort of a standard based on 1/35th of the value. So we have changed that, but I hear what the discussion was, but coming up with a way to put a value on pieces of property all over town gets kind of tough. And so the simplest thing to do is base it on the tax value. And I agree, it's been 7 years, just like it's been 7 years, and your taxes are based on it. But that just seems to be the simplest, fairest way to do it. And clearly, maintenance is a big reason why we haven't accepted 2 acres, 3 acres, 5 acres, 7-acre tracts of land all over town. We have pocket parks around town. Most all of our subdivisions now have pocket parks and amenities within the subdivision. The multi-use trail network that we're creating on that side of town with the other, 3 subdivisions east of there, the 5 subdivisions, and I'm just guesstimating, west of there, is going to create a very wonderful multi-use path system that is greenway that has not existed in Mebane. And that possibility is really coming together right now.
Aren't we required, and I mean, in the state of North Carolina, ad valorem taxes are supposed to be reassessed every 8 years, sometimes every 4 years?
So a county has the option of setting when they revalue. Part of what's triggering this current potential change is that there's a state law, and don't quote me on it, but basically the state law says if the values have increased to a certain level, that you reevaluate the properties in your territory, or you may lose the taxes on the utility properties in town. So our Duke properties, Piedmont, or the gas company. So there's a potential that if you don't reevaluate, you could lose some revenue on the backside of it. And I'll be perfectly honest, I know enough to be dangerous about that. I do not work for the county, and I do not work for the appraisal system, but that's the basic understandings I have of it. Which is why they were considering doing it a year early. And they set the value, they make those decisions. We have nothing to do with any values in the city. That is always done by the county and the county tax office.
Just for clarification, this is on the Orange County side, right?
So
That's correct.
it is on the Orange County side.
They've recently,
They recently redid their properties. My memory is this is either the first or second year of the new values in Mebane on the Orange County side.
Mr. Ewing, just for reference there, the county line
Right
runs right there.
Excuse me, Tom?
Mr. Mayor, if I could, because I just heard the most recent elaboration on the point that Mr. Rollins was making. The normal routine that Alamance County has followed has been 8 years. The state has advised the county that because of the higher than expected values, they must do it at 7 years. The proposal from the county tax administrator and that the county commissioners have been considering is to do it at the 6-year mark, which would make it next year. That part is sort of they have discretion to decide to do it then. They must do it the following year according to the state, which has moved it up a year as a mandatory requirement.
Thank you, sir.
That's helpful, thank you.
Already. Let's see. We're talking about stormwater. I pointed out the four SCMs that we have. On the, as a component of the project, open space and natural buffers, primarily located around the perimeter, but also within the site. And we also have supplemental plantings on the open space in the southeast corner due to the lack of existing vegetation there and the proximity of a neighboring residence. The project will have a neighborhood amenity that's going to be a pool and pool house building with bath and changing rooms, likely a covered patio area, and that's also going to have parking for that, and the mail kiosks will be located there at the pool house. Again, we do provide a 10-foot paved connection spur to the multi-use path, greenway trail system, and that actually ends right next to the bike parking there, so that'll be convenient. There will be full reciprocity and shared amenity use with the southern portion of Tupelo Junction, so there'll be full cross access for those folks. The people on the south can use the pool, and the people on the north can use the clubhouse building that's currently built down on the south side. And the amenity is to be constructed at the start of the second phase. Here we've got the amenity, got the pool house, parking, and the mail kiosks will be in there. Here's the bike parking and the spur that goes down to the multi-use path through the Duke easement. And then I mentioned down in the southeast corner, these are the additional plantings along that property line just to make up for the lack of existing natural vegetation along there. Our typical lots, this is our minimum lot, 25-foot front setback, 20-foot rear setback. 25-foot front setback is standard for R12. We are asking for a reduction to 20 feet on the rear. I would note that except for 4 or 5 corner lots, we have at least 15 feet of open space, and frequently as much as 100 or more feet of open space behind all the houses. We're a 7.5-foot side setback, a 13-foot corner setback. There's a 10-foot utility easement that's Mebane standard that runs along the frontage of each of the lots. And our minimum lot is 7,200 square feet, as is allowed by the 40% reduction for an R12 cluster. We will be doing, these are the architectural commitments from the builder. We will be doing fiber cement siding, which also comports with the 7.5-foot side setback that we're requesting. The fiber cement is fire resistant, so that provides a little extra protection for the houses being just slightly closer together. The exterior styles of the houses, the front elevations will include at least 2 of horizontal siding, shake siding, board and batten, and brick or cultured stone, at least 2 of each of those, just to kind of mix up the front facings of the house. There'll be decorative front doors with a minimum of 25% glazing or a window transom. Each of the houses will have a covered front porch or front entry. Roofing will be a minimum 612 pitch, 20-year asphalt shingles, and a minimum 6-inch overhang. These will be slab construction, 5-inch gutters with downspouts. All the houses will be 2-car garage. The garage doors will feature decorative hardware. Front yards will be sodded. The ranch plans are 1,400 to 2,000 square feet. 2-story plans are 18 to 3,200, and a variety of bedroom and bathroom combinations.
What would be the rough breakdown of the ranch and 2-story among the 2 lots?
I don't know that at this time. I'm not sure the developers made that.
Curious.
Did they say anything? And I've got a couple sample elevations for some of the houses here. I'll just kind of flip through these, but we're just kind of showing the differences in the siding and how the variation of materials will be kind of used. I think this is one of the ranch plans here, and then the rest are 2-story. think this one is the largest one. Alrighty, so just to sum up, Tupelo Junction North is designed as an R12 residential cluster subdivision with lot areas reduced up to 40% per the UDO to allow for the preservation of private open space as part of the neighborhood. As a result, we're requesting UDO waivers to reduce the minimum lot frontage from 65 feet to 60. We're reducing the side setbacks from 10 to 7.5. I will note that the southern portion of Tupelo Junction, they're currently 5. They were developed before the UDO updated, I believe, or they had a different waiver. We're asking for the corner setbacks to be reduced from 18 to 13. The rear lot setbacks from 25 to 20, although I did note that we've got quite a bit of open space that helps to keep the houses further apart. The backs of the houses further apart than even this would, because we have a minimum of 15 feet additional open space behind the lots. And again, we've reduced the required public recreation space from 5.94 with a half an acre for the trail for a payment in lieu of $16,000. Oops, and with that.
Can you
I'll take
comment
some
on
questions.
landscaping and trees in front yard?
I believe the UDO does require a tree in the front yard of each of the houses. We do have a note on the plans because that's kind of a building plan builder level bit of detail. We do have a note on the plans that says that for construction plans, they must comply with all portions of the Mebane UDO. So that's just not a detail that we really include at the stage of the design typically. But the UDO does require 1 tree minimum per lot, I believe, out front.
Councilmember White, I might need to clarify the response and the question on that. The UDO does require 1 tree, but that was what was passed, and the development director can correct me if I'm wrong, in June of this year. As this development submitted in May, they are not required to adhere to that. So if they do it, it would have to be a voluntary condition.
That's something that consider offering?
Yeah, we can do that certainly.
Tim, going back
Yes.
to the amenity, you stated it would be built in phase 2.
That's correct.
So my question is, will you be bonding it? Let's just say for an example, if something comes up and you don't build this particular development, want to protect the ones that will be there by bonding it. I want to protect that amenity so we don't run into what we ran into in the past.
Yes, yeah, that's what we're.
So
Yes, that will be bonding the amenity will be part of that. And I'll also mention too that the amenity for the southern portion of Tupelo is actually already built. And again, there's going to be that full cross access easement between the 2 developments. So as soon as phase 1 goes into, they're already going to have access to the clubhouse that's currently constructed.
okay, so the clubhouse is on phase in South Park.
Yes, which is technically a separate development, but there'll be 2 HOAs, but they will have a full cross access agreement for both the HOAs and all the residents.
Thank you.
Actually did have one question about this. The 12-inch sewer and water going northwest, will that be pending any developments, or are you just going to go straight to the Mill Creek developments?
We'll go to our property line, or just we'll go to our property line, or just over it, possibly. No, we can't just go. We can't go over it because it's their property. But we will go to our property and provide a proper connection there for them.
So no
We'll provide an easement to the property line and stop just short, and probably have to bond a short section of it.
No loop at this time.
No loop at this time. No.
Bill Cuff with Earth Centric Engineering. Just wanted to clarify something. There actually is a water loop there, It would just be that the 12 is like the main trunk line, but because of the way that the water is actually directed through the other lots or through the other roadways, it does create a loop system through there as well. So that will stabilize uh, the entire set of water line. The main reason for putting that 12-inch trunk line is to actually provide better stabilization for the groups further north of us. So that is the purpose there, is to upsize that line for that. And that would be done with the work with the city in terms of, as Tim said before, calculations. I believe if you actually calculate it out right now, it would actually work with an 8-inch line through there, but the city would prefer the 12-inch because it does provide better service.
So there's already a connection there from the northwest.
Not yet, but it will. It is intended to, when they extend down, when the neighboring Mill Creek development extends down, it would tie into that.
I think what Phil was saying is we do create some loops, like we have water connections. We have 2 connections with water to Tupelo South. So if something were to happen to this side can provide connectivity, and several of these loop around. So there's a lot of interconnectivity. It's just the eventual large loop, Mill Creek, that's
still
kind of out of our control, but we're providing the access.
All right, any further questions from council? If not, it is a public hearing. Anybody from the audience like to speak?
You know me, I gotta come up with a question.
Yes,
on
sir.
that.
We know it.
Carl Bradley,
Yeah.
y'all know me. And it was because of something, somebody commented to me today that they were going into a place and the pool was supposed to be a certain size. They got there and it was like maybe a quarter of what it was supposed to be. And so I don't know. My question was, is there any guarantees on when they say there's gonna be a pool and it's gonna be the size that they have to do one that size? Interesting question. Thank you.
So if they show the pool on the map, they're gonna have to build the size that they show. I think I know where you're talking about, but I don't know that for sure. Where years ago, a pool was said it was gonna be one size, but when you actually looked at the site plan, it was nowhere near that size. And so the presentation mentioned a size pool, but there is no way on earth that size pool fit on the site plan, then on the site, and they just got confused in the presentation when they said the size pool. But what was shown on the plans is what was built.
Good question. Yes, sir.
Steve Wright, just a disinterested party. In terms of property line plantings, can I recommend, at least to the city, you consider asking the developers to plant more than one species? One may be fast growing, one slow growing. I've seen a lot of places where you just strip the same thing. It really doesn't look good. If you need to take down part of the trees, having something else there is a real improvement. And then a question, where the proposed right turn lane is there already a left turn lane access set up there, or is it needed? It seems to me, knowing that intersection, if you're going to turn into that development coming down Stagecoach from First Street, you really should have a left turn signal, turn lane there.
Thank you, sir.
Yep. I don't believe at this time there are any extra lanes there at the Stagecoach. I mean, it's a fairly wide area. You can, I think people that have driven it, you could maybe kind of split it into right and a left turn if you tried.
That would be part of the study.
Yeah.
DOT would perform. And then, of course, signal light there, even without, if a turn lane could not fit there, does provide the ability of someone to make the turn and a break in the cycle. So, but that would have to be studied.
Thanks, sir. Colin?
I really appreciate Mr. Bradley and Mr. Rollins and Mr. Davis's wisdom pushing back against my suggestions, and I appreciate that the city is choosing to go in that direction of more centralized parks, and that's certainly the city's option to do. When the UDO was put together with that design of the small parks, that was selected as a contribution that the developers had to make to the public recreational life of the city. And if the city is now choosing to opt for, by default, the payment in lieu and centralize its parks, that's effectively a grant that the city is making to every developer, saying that you used to have to contribute to this recreational life of the city. You no longer do. We're going to take these very, very small payments instead, these sort of nominal payments, and we're going to handle the cost of developing and building and buying these parks all by ourselves. And I think if the city is going to make that strategic shift in its direction, it should decide what is it getting, like what is it replacing that with, so that people who are building these subdivisions can contribute something else. So this particular plan, the reason that the payment in lieu is $16,000, I mean, this is the definition of the letter of the law, but not the spirit. So the UDO calls for a payment that is the equivalent of the assessed tax value. So it's true that Orange County did just reassess all their taxes, and the land here, this Lee's Bees farm, it's 84, 83, or 84 acres, and it is assessed currently at, I think, $21,000. And the reason it is assessed that way is because there is a gigantic deferred tax value on it. It's right there. You can go look it up in Orange County's taxes, of over $500,000 in tax value, which will have to be paid when the property is sold. So although technically it's only assessed at $20,000, there's $500,000 in tax value that Orange County knows is there and is on the tax assessment. It's just not on the line that says assessed value. And this, this application is using that technicality to deprive the city of the very little money that the city has decided it's going to get in exchange for this. And I don't think it's right. I don't think the city should allow itself to be taken in that way.
So the land probably was assessed as a farm.
Yeah, it's
and
Lee's
charged
Bees. It's a
farm
bee
tax
farm.
or farm, you think?
Yeah.
And now it's being sold.
Yeah.
And Orange County's getting their tax money back.
Yeah, I don't know if it's currently, is it currently a bee farm? Okay, so as soon as it stops being a bee farm, somebody's going to be assessed for the full tax value. But at this very moment, technically, the assessed value is $20,000 on those 83 acres. And that's why they can come in and say, oh no, according to the formula, we only owe you $16,000 instead of 5 acres of public recreation space. And I mean, if the rules lead you to an absurd place, you don't have to follow them there.
Thank you, sir. Dan?
Oh, one more.
Thank you, Mayor. Dan Shannon. My home is 4681 Mebane Rogers Road. I'm about a mile and a half from Tupelo Junction, and I have a daughter and her husband who are approximately 2 miles from there. Chief Wells, so in the spirit of looking at how the fire department would take care of this, I'm sure that Mebane would offer support, but can you tell us, how the fire system out of Orange County, the closest one there, and then how Mebane would respond to a house fire there?
That's, Dan, that's actually, or she's coming up.
Did I speak too early?
No, you're
No, you're
good.
fine.
You're good.
Question again was, how are we gonna handle a fire in that neighborhood?
The support in that area. I know that it's most in Orange County, but again, I'm a mile and a half from there, and my daughter is 2 miles inside Orange County in Eflin.
All right, currently,
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, it's in Orange County. It's outside of the city limits. It is in Eflin's Fire District. It's going to be in the city limits, so it will continue to be our primary response. And Eflin will respond mutual aid on working structure fires. And then we have other resources we can call as well. Does that help you?
That does, but there's also concern there's another development going across the food lines, about 1,500 houses and condominiums, I believe. Is there discussion or potential for another station anywhere near there?
We just recently had an analysis done on station locations, and the two target areas was west and east, south of the interstate. There's a station within 1.5 miles, 2 miles of that area. So it's manned with an engine company, a ladder company, a rescue company, and a brush truck.
So you feel like it's adequate with the amount of housing that's being proposed in that area in the next 5 years or so?
I think so.
But stations are decided on, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, mainly by response time and not, I mean, it doesn't, if it's 1,500 houses or there's 50 houses, it's only the response time that's important in where you locate. Is that one of the considerations or the only consideration?
Now, for ISO purposes, when they evaluate a fire department, they've strictly gone to, we used to do the 1.5 mile districts.
Right.
Water distribution and response times. Now it's strictly based on that 1.5 mile district.
Okay. So the number of houses really is incidental to the formula of where you place a fire department. And if it's turns out to be a massive fire, there'll be mutual aid from other places. But that's a good question.
Thank you.
Also, Mr. Mayor, Chief Lewis attends the technical review committee, and this type of material is discussed as part of that. And there have been some areas where we cannot provide fire coverage, and we have shared with the developer at this point in time that is an issue, and sometimes they don't move forward if we can't provide coverage.
Could we get just a little more clarity on some of Mr. Cannell's comments regarding assessed and deferred tax values? I don't want to get into a legal quagmire, but I do want to understand the
I think the
situation.
legal quagmire is the example there. The same answers still apply. We still have to follow court precedents and general statutes. I understand his statement that it would be better if reevaluation was done more often, if the requirements related to being a farm didn't impact the property or the tax rates. But though we are a Dillon rule state, we are, as local government creatures of the state, we have to have general statute authority to undertake things. Also, again, referencing court precedents, this is the same as we went through with our system development fees. We have to be very careful in justifying what we charge. So the city attorney has looked through this in the past. He continues to look at it. We do as well. But I would say the same answers still apply, and also the answer from the Recreation and Parks Director about centralized parks still apply. It's a very delicate and complex situation, and I'm not making light of it. It's just a very difficult situation to ensure we will not be in a lawsuit where we lose and have to pay significant damages, which has occurred for other local governments in North Carolina. So, but I certainly don't mind, and I'm sure council doesn't, passing on these concerns to their General Assembly delegation as
And-
well. So.
And forgive me, I'm digging through
paying
old
attention,
real
so-
estate training, but aren't those agricultural zoning protections federally mandated or created?
I'll use the city manager statement to say just enough to be dangerous, but there are some federal, but there's also specific state laws as well too. But they are designed to help agriculture-based businesses. And in this case, admittedly, it does hurt us, but we also have to follow the general statutes that are passed along to us as well.
Right,
And
and-
also court precedent.
And those property owners are required to, if I'm not mistaken, maintain like to demonstrate they are continually working farm. Like in this case, it is a continually used farm or business in order to, I guess, keep those protections that they.
Yeah, not being an expert, but that's my understanding as well.
That like falling under bona fide farm.
Yes, so somewhat similar to that, Councilmember Hadley.
Just for the, go
The
ahead.
mayor's been around longer than I have, but I don't think this pay in lieu of started with the UDO. I think it was in existence before then. We also had payment in lieu of sidewalks that we used to use a lot more than we do now, but I think the comments Stephen made are good. We just need to make sure we're getting as much as we can legally.
Right. I mean, from my perspective, I think payment in lieu makes sense here. I think from a public perspective, if the public perceives that, man, developers can pay $16,000 for 5 acres of land, that's crazy. And I think this is a somewhat unique situation. And I just don't want people to walk away thinking that that's just the normal calculus that occurs in these situations.
Well, the developer is furnishing, pools and clubhouses and picnic shovels and shelters and greenways and stuff. So in terms of recreation ability for our amenities for this thing, there is a tremendous amount.
And also, Mayor Hooks and Councilmember White, that number is based upon deducting out the cost of the Greenway multi-use path, which is a public facility as well.
So the number is
It's
actually
important to
higher.
note.
Okay.
And I don't know if you can speak
Yeah,
on that,
all
Tim.
all of that pavement for the multi-use path is a fairly substantial
Right.
investment. So I wouldn't want the public to think that we're kind of getting away with just the 16,000. We've got probably it's actually going to be, when we get down to the final design plans, it's going to be quite a bit more, not quite a bit more, but something more than half an acre of pavement. That's going to be for the multi-use path, a lot of grading to get that in, and connectivity to a really nice existing amenity that the city is going to have eventually.
And that's quite compelling and good information there. So thank you, Mr.
Right.
Mitchell. Do we have any idea what that cost would be ish for the multi-use pathway?
Anybody? No, we didn't.
Well, we know what it's costing the city on our greenway, so I think you can get a pretty good idea. It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I think it is worth noting, not just on this subdivision, but others that have been referenced, they have to be built to our standards. And many times they remain under the developer HOA care until a significant portion of it brings into our city system.
Also, while we're talking about access, I just want to clarify something I was talking about earlier with respect to this crossing. The adjoining property is going through the TRC process right now, and we've been talking with their engineers, and they're fairly advanced in their design for this, but nothing is guaranteed. So I did just want to clarify that if this does go away, there's no developer to have an agreement with. So we would have to stop short of the creek and leave something that's still constructible there on our side, but we can't go on to another property. Yeah, the stub at the very least is guaranteed, and we're working very hard with the other engineers to get something really good across here. And also, I think that's something that the fire chief is very interested in, to have this new connectivity in all the way through Mill Creek for emergencies. So we're definitely hoping that works out, and we're going to do everything we can to do that. But if that development does go away, we'll just have to leave it building up to the creek, because we can't cross onto the other property.
Any other questions from the council? All right. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, I just wondered who the builder is, either for the first section and or for the new north section.
So, Davidson.
Norman's first section.
Oh, Did you get Garmin Homes for the south and for our project here, Davidson?
Davidson examples were the ones shown.
Correct. Yeah, those are provided by Davidson.
Is there any further questions from the citizens? All right, Councilman.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Got a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries to close the public hearing.
Okay.
What's the pleasure of council?
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Sorry, you're not done yet.
No. I was actually going to, I'm going to make a motion. What I was going to say is I typically am a bit of a stickler on setbacks. But I have had the opportunity to see this concept actually with one of these builders from the Tupelo subdivision in sort of the cluster setting. And they've done an amazing job with the recreation space. So in consideration with that, that is where my motion is coming from. I would like to make a motion to approve the R12 CD zoning as presented. And motion to find that the application is consistent with the objectives and goals in the city's 2017 Comprehensive Land Development Plan, Mebane by Design. The request is for a property within the city's G4 secondary growth area, which is generally residential and commercial in nature, is providing community facilities in the form of a greenway consistent with the growth management goal, and provides a greenway and open space in a developing area connecting to other locations consistent with open space and natural resource protection goal.
Second.
Oh, we have a motion and a second. Preston?
Yes, sir. I just want to make sure the motion includes the verbal voluntary conditions that were referenced tonight as well.
And I will add the verbal
Included that.
conditions. Yes.
City attorney, okay with that?
Yeah. Oh, I'm a part-time attorney. No, no. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, let's take a 10-minute break.
Thank you. I said, thank you. You get tired of making motions.
I know.
I think it's pretty good
Hey,
development.
how are you?
Jim and them usually do a pretty good job.
So that's why I was like, it's actually. It'd be different if everybody's coming. Perfect, yeah. And I think you're trying to.
Those are good.
Yeah, that sounds good. Okay. Well, thank you. Nice to meet you. I appreciate it. Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Well, you know, we've
Yeah. And there's a lot of yeah. Oh, yeah.
You're very welcome, man. We run a tight ship here, man.
Believe it or not,
We run a tight,
Rail
we
crossings
run
is
a,
more controversial than speed limits. Yeah, well, what I shared with him was I said, this stuff is discussed and analyzed before 119 was even began. It's discussed again, and shared. And my answer to him was, I said, if we find 45 not the appropriate speed limit after a while, it can be removed.
I think it's what we're proposing.
Yeah.
Making it pay for
Yeah, and
then if we want to change the ground, it's a process.
well, they bring that up and say that, and also too, share with them, all of these speed limits are in conjunction with the new 119. So one change impacts the other, you know.
Well, and that's true, because I've got the stats.
Yeah.
There's an ordinance just established where 119.
Yeah.
These are just unfortunate.
Yeah. So obviously you saw going through Tupelo North, you know, we're, right or wrong, we're kind of heavily into transportation.
Working with Chuck on that one the other day.
Yeah, okay.
I guess before he met you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I mean, that's fairly common for Mebane now. But I think we go through and get that, and you saw in the summer season about all the different deals.
Yeah,
We do it individually. We put everything in there. We've had very good feedback. It all depends on the mayor. I would just say,
early in the conversation, she said,
this is what's all understand what imagine what's out there. This is what was previously analyzed or options. That's not correct. I'm thinking about that when the meeting started. I never looked to see where Brian was.
well, and that's, you know, I expected maybe somebody from the town would say something about where the town facilities are back.
What?
Where the town facilities are back.
Yeah. No, we're fine with it. We're actually for years, because that was a dead end street. We have it on our section is 15.
That's right.
At some point, we're going to probably change that. Nobody is running 15 through there, and our public works director actually went out there and purposely ran 15, and he said he rode the brake nonstop because it's downhill.
Well, and it's a through road. We're dead end before.
Let me introduce you to Councilmember Jonathan White.
Brian Thomas, nice to meet you.
He's the one that asked all the tough questions.
So I'm ready for the tough one.
He's here with the speed limits.
Oh, okay. DOT.
He actually was telling me he was working with the district about the Tupelo North 60 miles.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All of it.
Yeah. So, where are you out of Raleigh?
I work for Raleigh. I come to
You got Division 7 and 12.
Division 9.
I did a little.
There's a corner out there. France, what's the name? No.
Yeah.
So I think I'm gonna keep pushing for us to change the way we calculate it, because it's clear that the city's gonna default to that going forward. And we're going to continue to go forward.
That's not who I thought.
I think we constantly have to bring it back to actually say, not only is this piece of corn, this cornerstone, but what else?
But I don't think we have to do it on the
Good to go.
forum like he said we did, and I don't believe him. I was looking at other cities and they don't do it. Yeah, I was looking at like Chapel Hill, like and Charlotte, other cities. But the way they do it is that they're like, you have to set aside a certain amount of space. If you don't want to do that, you have to pay $1 per space. And that avoids the disproportionate impact on developers who would be doing infill, right? It would be very expensive for them versus these guys developing on the edge of the city. It's pocket change for them. And so to equalize the impact of the developers, they just set a certain amount of money per square foot.
Yes, sir.
I did get an email.
That's the way we should do it.
Hey, Ed, hope you're doing well. I just wanted the planning board meeting, Tupelo North. Looks like the boys did a nice job. Gary Lee.
Well, I want to.
Well, I think he's going to 6 years. He's sitting a real long ladder. So thank you for everything you're doing. So he's being He said we used to go ride our horses up Lebanon and all this. Now we're not. We would appreciate
It was just like mind
I'm
blowing to
hoping
look at
you'll
that actual
buy
tax assessment and be like, $20,000, actual value of $520,000. You know, the city is derived at like $40,000 and like, they
Slow it
just,
down a little
you know,
bit.
Orange County.
He needs to slow it down a little bit though, damn. The development. We bang on that thing.
I'm good. You ever turn me without one in the bathroom? Thank you. I was worried about John.
Yes.
So this means you go forward, this means you go back. And then you're pointing.
Mayor has left the room.
Okay, all right, that's all.
Well, you know, I've been dealing with him for over 20 years, and I had he always had tons of.
Did we lose Ed? I thought he just called us back. I'm quietly waiting on him.
He told me he always blaming me for being late now.
Mm-hmm.
Boring. Where's the mayor? All right, let's get started. I want to welcome Brian Thomas up to the podium, North Carolina DOT Regional Traffic Engineer.
Yes, sir. Good evening. So you have a package for you that outlines some administrative changes for speed limits related to the NC 119 bypass construction. That project's complete. We have a long list of ordinances in the state that we need to change. The ones before you are the ordinances applicable to the town of Mebane that we need Mebane concurrence with. And so I'd like to point out that these ordinances are on the critical path for us completing the paperwork on this NC 119 project. And so I think we'll step right into that. Several maps, and maybe a little confusing, but we can go through each and every one and I can answer any questions anybody might have. But in general, these ordinances that we're asking for town action on tonight change the road that existing ordinances refer to, or they change endpoints that existing ordinances refer to. The bottom line is all these ordinances match conditions currently in the field. There's no changes. So, are there any questions on this 119 portion?
Well, just for further clarity, this is a formal fixing of designations with the completion of 119, but there's no speed limit changes here, is what you're saying.
Correct. So if there was a sign in the ground before, these ordinances are written to match, and the limits, for the most part, stay the same unless the road changed. So we're not changing anything at this time.
Okay.
And these only involve in the city.
That's right. These are state maintained roads within the city limits, which is why we're asking for municipal concurrence.
I did have, I'd actually asked staff about this, and then I had a constituent reach out to me about the same thing. And I do understand that there are certain triggers in place that as future intersections and development comes along that's proposed, after it is in place, we may be seeing those triggers kind of come through and require maybe reassessment of certain speed limits. But I guess one particular point that came up was on 5th Street coming off of the new bypass going towards London Lane. And I know we've got a light coming at London Lane, but it goes from 45 to 35. And I've had, feedback and again, my own thoughts too, were that it might be better served to be 35 through there and not change to 45 before getting to that. But I also can be told, please wait patiently because you're not there yet. So,
Well, and that's right. So I think the big thing to point out there is that the signal at the new bypass is designed for 45. And
Mhm.
so at this point, we want to get our paperwork
Yeah,
caught up.
I hear you.
And we can revise that, but it would take some discussion with staff, certainly a major signal revision to make it happen.
Sure. And I think just on a personal note, I would rather see the light come in. And then I think we've got some commercial structures that might be coming in along that area, at least one for sure. And so I would rather see that too. But, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, sure.
Need a motion?
I've got some other maps. You want to take a look at those? So this was the 119 area. This is Mebane Oaks Road. There was an existing 35-mile-per-hour ordinance. Mebane Oaks at 5th Street. We're recommending to repeal that ordinance because it's within the city limits and you don't need an ordinance for that. This is for the new alignment of SR 1973 near the town public works facilities. We're recommending the town concur with the 25-mile-per-hour ordinance on the new section.
Especially with all the athletic fields and stuff there and
Yes,
the
sir.
trucks coming and off that. That's good.
This is consistent with what we're going to be doing outside the city limits. It's 25 in those residential neighborhoods. So it'd be a uniform speed limit through that area. And the last one was on Center Street. It's just changing the reference from 119 to the secondary road number. Limits remain the same, speed limit remains the same.
That it?
That's all I have. I'm here for you guys. Any questions?
For general interest, could you just explain the process for speed limit review? Because we do get questions from the public about speed limits and how they're decided, and this might be a good opportunity to just clarify that in general.
In general, we'd start with your local DOT contacts and ask for a review. Yeah, and I would preface that by make sure it's on a state road. If it's your road,
yeah,
you can certainly address that without DOT involvement.
Okay.
Any other questions? If not, need a motion.
To reflect the rerouting of North Carolina 119 from 5th Street to the newly constructed alignment and assignment of secondary road number SR 249 to existing 5th Street, I make the motion for to repeal the 45-mile-an-hour ordinance 1066310 on existing 119 5th Street and approve 45-mile-an-hour speed limit ordinance for 1078403 on State Road 2049, which is 5th Street. Make a motion for the repeal the 25-mile-an-hour ordinance 110000201 on existing US 70, which is West Center Street, and approve to the 25-mile-an-hour ordinance 1078407 on US 70, which is West Center Street. And I make the motion for the repeal the 35-mile ordinance 1051184 on State Road 1007, Mebane Oaks Road. Note there that there's no replacement ordinance required since the posted 35-mile speed limit is covered by general statutes within the city limits. And to reflect extension of State Road 1973, Tate Avenue to Rigador Street, I make the motion for the approval 25-mile ordinance 1082220 on newly constructed State Road 1973 within municipal limits south of Roosevelt Street.
Second.
I was going to ask Lawson, we can do it all at one time, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, moving along to Mebane, rail crossing implementation, Ms. Cogdill. And
I'm Brian Gaxton. I'm Senior Project Engineer at Rail Division. This is Connie. She's a Project Engineer in the Rail Division. Rail Division is a unit, modal unit within the Department of Transportation. We assist Division of Highways on projects, but we are a modal division. And as a part of that, we do studies, we do projects. We have our own projects that we implement as a part of our plan. One thing that we have done is traffic separation studies. That's what this unit kind of focuses on. Traffic separation studies looks at defined corridors. It could be half a dozen crossings, could be a couple dozen crossings within a defined limit within a municipality or a county. We have done traffic separation studies along North Carolina corridor from Raleigh to Charlotte, as well as some other areas within the state. Back in 2015, the department or the rail division entered into an agreement with the city of Mebane, North Carolina Railroad Company, which is the owner of this railroad line behind you, and as well as Norfolk Southern. We did an analysis of crossings from Buckhorn Road to the east to Gibson Road to the west. Based on the findings that we had at that time, we came up with some recommendations. And those recommendations were presented to City Council back in 2017 and as a public hearing process in 2018. So we're here tonight to formally present those findings to you. We have come and individually met with you informally, discussed your concerns, got your feedback from each and every one of you guys personally. So as we have gone through those meetings, we have gotten more information, and we're here tonight to kind of wrap that up into a bow and allow us to move forward with this traffic separation study and the plans that will ultimately be developed as a part of the project. So Connie is going to walk through each of the crossings, starting with Fifth Street and working our way to the west.
Hello. As Brian mentioned, my name is Connie, well, short for Consuela. It's easier to pronounce. And I will be going over the drawings that we presented to the council that was also placed in the TSS, the Traffic Safety Separation Study from 2018. Okay, the first one that's on your screen is Fifth Street. When the TSS was presented back in 2018, there was two options. After we spoke with the council individually over the last few weeks, it came to that the council preferred option number 2. Option 2 is to have sidewalks placed on both the east and west side of Fifth Street, to also install the median, as well as reducing the lanes to 3, where you will have a coming south from US Highway 70, you'll have a dedicated right turn lane going through, and then you also will be reducing on the Fifth Street going north to US 70, we'll remove the dedicated right turning lane for safety reasons and just have a through and right lane at that particular turn.
Sorry. This intersection, I think the public is very interested in this intersection. You said a lot of things. I just want people to be able to come away with a correct and a clear understanding. Is this kind of your final proposal, and now you'd want to do studies to move ahead, or is this where exactly does this stand?
Well, the way that the TSS is, it is an actual presentation of recommendations.
Okay.
So it still needs to go through the design process to come up with the actual measurements, the through points, et cetera, to make a final decision. So right now, what you have is just an overgloss of what we're recommending for safety purposes at this particular intersection.
Because I believe there were some feasibility concerns due to elevations on that southwest corner. Does that mean that those have been resolved, or that just means that those will be looked at further?
They will be looked at further. The next intersection is 4th Street. 4th Street will be adding a sidewalk onto the west side to add for better pedestrian movement from Washington to US 70. The same will be holding true for 3rd Street to allow for ease of pedestrian movement along from Washington to Highway 70.
When we had discussed on 3rd Street, I think I forget the name you had for them, but there was like a back and forth idea. Is that I don't see that
Yes,
here.
that's a Z pattern.
That's right.
What we presented to you previously was what was discussed back in 2018. But due to the fact that we have a changed council, we're looking at it from based off of the actual recommendations that are provided in the TSS and starting from that point.
One thing on Third Street, it was brought up in a previous meeting on sidewalks on both sides. So that is something that's still on the table at this point for Third and Fourth. It's going to take full surveys in coordination with North Carolina Railroad to figure out whether or not sidewalks on both sides are going to be acceptable. So that's
you.
further conversations there yet to be determined. Right now, again, high level, but we do still have those on the table now for further considerations.
Awesome. The next crossing that we looked at was Gibson Road. Here we'll be installing a median to prevent vehicles from actually crossing through the barriers when they come down when a train is coming through. And last is Moore Road. This one, our recommendation is to actually have medians installed. These medians are to prevent drivers from actually crossing through the barriers whenever they come through, because it's a 2-quad intersection with regards to the rail barriers. It is still up for debate. It is still up for design recommendations and considerations as we move forward. So it has not been finalized at this particular point. So we are still open for the city's comments and concerns related to this particular crossing.
Can you clarify the word median? Because I think to most people, median means, something this high that you see on the interstate.
Okay, there are different types of medians depending upon the actual traffic that's going to be carried. This will be 6 inches, and it'll be about 150 to 100 feet in length.
Typically, the medians within the sealed corridor are approximately 100 feet long. Based on previous studies, that's the desired length for effectiveness. So that's something that is uniform across the sealed corridor, and the sealed corridor is Raleigh to Charlotte.
So somebody coming in Moore wants to head west. It's not going to be allowed a left turn.
So the design that you see in front of you now, that median width is stopped short of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's just why, as of right now, this discussion is ongoing as we work through what is the best design for this location.
So they can make a left turn or they cannot?
Currently, right now, they can.
Yes.
The way that it's shown, they can.
They can.
They can.
Yeah.
But that's where we are right now.
Okay.
So we are looking at it further based on our effective length of our medians. What does that look like? What does this overall intersection look like at this location? So that's something that is still on the table for further review and engineering design as we move forward. What is the best fit for this location?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify which left you were referring to. Was it the left onto US 70 or the left onto Railroad Street?
Right.
The answer,
US 70.
that left is still there. Yes, that left will still be there with the median. That's why I want to clarify. It will, where the cutoff of the median will affect the left turning to Railroad compared to US Highway 70. So I wanted to clarify which left you were referring to.
And the state or DOT and rail will pay for everything on this project.
Yes, we have funding available for this project.
Everything.
Yes.
Good. Thank you.
When these plans are finalized, are they represented to us or just work through staff?
Work through staff. So what we're here tonight is to present the findings and the traffic separation study itself. And what we're asking for council right now is a resolution of intent to move forward with engineering design so that we can officially move forward on the project.
What's the rough time frame for engineering design? And then at the end of engineering design completion, would these be done simultaneously or would you know?
So typically the way that it's going to function is once we get this resolution of intent, we'll enter into an agreement, 4-party agreement between the state, the 2 railroads, and the city. That allows us to begin the process. One thing that's not been done is environmental document that will have to be completed as part of the project as well before we can actually finalize the plans. So it's going to take time. Some of that stuff can run concurrently, but it's going to take some time to get to this point.
So 6 months, year and a half?
Typically around about a year.
Okay. And then once that's completed, how much time to actually do all the work?
So the intent is this will be a project that will be let through Division 7. So that's it. It'll be worked on what their time frame is.
Okay.
These types of projects are something that they do as a courtesy to Rail Division, outside of the normal STIP projects that have to be flowed down through Division 7 for management. So this is something that we work with them to fit in their schedule. So we can't commit to that at this time. That's something that we will work towards. Once we get close to that date, we'll have an idea, and we can work with staff to transmit that information to the city once we get closer to that time frame.
This is several years down the road.
We're a couple years down the road. Yes.
Well, it's a great improvement for safety and pedestrians, and Mebane, particularly downtown, has a fantastic pedestrian friendly city. This will help a lot, particularly with the construction of apartments, those things being right there on 3rd and 4th. I think it'll be a great addition.
Correct. And this is a
great
response,
improvement.
yes, this is a response to the accidents at this street, and also well as trespassing, pedestrian trespassing that occurs within the corridor. So, you know, there's fencing. That's a part of this project to channelize pedestrians to these at-grade crossings to prevent them from crossing the rail corridor in non-at-grade crossing locations. So it's both a vehicular and pedestrian safety project.
Does council have any other questions?
Mayor, I had one clarification. On Fifth Street, we are still talking about a median with a mountable median in the intersection at Washington.
That is
Okay.
correct.
And you guys are gonna pay for the fence too, or the
Yes.
project pays for the fence too?
We will pay for the installation of it, yes.
The city will be responsible for the maintenance.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to speak on this matter, if I may.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, I understood from the presentation that these DOT representatives from the Rail Division have met individually with each council member. Is that correct? Mr. Mayor, I found that to be a very objectionable aspect and procedure. This council is supposed to conduct its business in open session, not individually, one member at a time with some special interest, even if the special interest is the State Department of Transportation. This is not appropriate for the council to have had sequential meetings with a special interest group. And I would certainly hope that the council would avoid this manner of operating in the future. In the meantime, however, we will want to have a copy of all correspondence between members of the council and the DOT on this subject. Anything that has happened, any notes from the meetings. This is really, to be honest, quite outrageous and extremely disappointing. And if it is so routine, it could have been done at the public meeting with you all giving your opinions to them and the public perhaps. Woo, what a novel idea. Let's let the public have a little input. But no, apparently just this group met with just individual members of the council. And I think that was a great failing in public policy of this board on that occasion and topic. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Tom. All right, what's the pleasure of the council? Any other questions?
I motion to adopt the resolution of intent of the City of Mebane City Council rail crossing implementation.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on. Number 8, Clay. Oh, before I go any further, I want to recognize Bradford Academy. They have some students here tonight, and we appreciate you coming. Y'all stand up. Thank you. Well, that's a good-looking group. Thank you. Welcome tonight. And I should have recognized you earlier, but thank you for coming. All right, moving on to number 8, Clay Street and 4th Street improvements. Mark Wright. Well, we got a team on this.
Mr. Mayor, before they start, do want to provide an overview on this, somewhat of an opening. We do have a team that's presenting. As far as an opening goes, Mayor Pro Tem Bradley provided an excellent opening at our September meeting when he referenced projects, some projects, and this is an excellent case of that. Many times a solution to a matter requires additional items to be performed. You have this material in your advance packet. You will see this is a classic example of many additional items that have to be undertaken to provide a solution to the settlement issue on Clay Street. And also the concern that it may eventually occur on the block of 4th Street between Clay and Center Street. Tonight, staff's going to be requesting at the end a consensus for the first part of the plan of action to go to bid that should be a long-term solution to the settlement issue. And then also we'll be doing a general presentation of a staff level endeavor for a 2022 holiday plan of action that's scheduled on November 14th, obviously weather dependent. Just a little, there'll be more background, but the city has been studying this matter since 2018, undertaken many different endeavors. We feel like this is probably the best endeavor our research has indicated up to this point. Most of 2022 was utilized for research on this matter and a long-term solution. Obviously, this group will be presenting on that. City staff will review the PowerPoint presentation, understanding that you received this in advance, so we're not going to try to read it verbatim, but we are ready to take questions. Also, we are going to use tonight's meeting as a way to work with our partner, DMDC, to provide the minute mark for this meeting to downtown business owners and property owners. And of course, DMDC is hosting a info session next week during morning hours and evening hours for as many downtown businesses and property owners to be able to attend. And then we'll certainly try to keep the presentation a reasonable length, but understand it is important material in a very visible location. So at this point, I will turn it over to the staff here.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. And Kyle and I will be making this presentation as Preston has outlined. Also, we have Ashley and Chief Lewis around here with us. If you got some other questions for them, and they're prepared to answer. And Franz is always going to keep us all in line, as Preston as well. So without further ado, we will go ahead and get started. I'll let you operate that thing.
Guys, would y'all introduce yourselves? Names, titles?
Mark Reich with Allie Williams, Carbon and King.
I'm Kyle Smith, Public Utilities Director for Mebane.
And if you want, I'll add the other ones since they're not up here. City Engineer Franz Holt, if you'll raise your hand. Public Works Director Chuck Smith, if you'll raise your hand. Chief Bob Lewis, if you raise your hand. Development Director Ashley Owenby.
Okay.
If you'll raise your hand.
All right. As Preston alluded, we have been working for some time, the staff has on this, but I'll go back to 2011. The city, if you'll recall, milled and paved Clay Street, put in the stamped asphalt and all that work back in 2011. In 2018, we started experiencing some settlement issues, and the city hired Terracon to come in and do some geo exploration work along Clay Street, and they identified some voids that have been determined by ground penetrating radar. In April 22, Terracon again did some more additional exploration after the city had tried to do some cracks, some filling in some of these voids beforehand. And moving forward, I'm going to turn this over to, I skipped over that first part, but anyhow, I do want to go back and tell you in 1921, that was back when the town had received a petition to pave Clay Street. And it also, as part of that, they had to connect to the existing water and sewer lines. Those water and sewer lines out there are over 100 years old, and they are in need of some repair. And I'm going to let Kyle get into talking a little bit more about this. But the main cause, we think, the main cause of these settlement issues is because of the compaction and the poor soils when that was installed over 100 years ago. Compaction techniques have greatly increased in the last 100 years. So turn it over to Kyle.
Again, Mr. Wright alluded to Terracon coming out in April, using ground penetrating radar to do a scan of the entire Clay Street section from 3rd to 5th. What you see here is 4 areas identified on Clay between 3rd and 4th here. Oops, sorry. There we go. They are these purple areas that are I'm highlighting here. Moving on to Clay Street from 4th to 5th, we had an additional area identified down towards 5th Street. And I want to say around 2020, we had a area that was showing some settlement on Clay Street near 3rd in this area right here. We actually came out at night and dug the area up, and you can see in the top photo on the left there, we've got a couple inches of asphalt, then we've got a concrete layer, and then you can see a void up under the street. What you can also see in the bottom right here, this is some leftover flowable fill from where we tried to make the repair back in 2018, and there was a high point under the street in this void. That flowable fill just could not make it over that high point. And just beyond that, this is what you're seeing. After we made that excavation a little larger, we could get down there and take a picture of that. It's a sag under the street. That's probably 6 inches deep right there in that area, probably 4 feet long, what we found.
And that work with the radar should have identified similar places
Yes.
like this all through that corridor?
Yes, they did a grid pattern and went back and forth of the whole street. This is an example of some of the results from the ground penetrating radar. This area right here is what they identified as either poor souls or a void. And they had multiple different sheets in their report showing this, but I just pulled an example area out. They also performed 4 bores out there in Clay Street just to see exactly what was going on in the soil. And in this area right here, they actually identified void in one of the bore locations. We have videoed both the sewer lines and the stormwater lines out along Clay Street. Honestly, the lines look pretty good to be 100 years old, but there are cracks, there are some offset joints. They have the potential to deteriorate. One of the repair options we're looking at, if we don't address the sewer and stormwater lines, we could cause some negative impacts to those with the repair option. We've researched several options in order to address the root cause of the settlement. We want to look at doing trenchless technology as much as we can to avoid disturbance with the businesses and traffic. We're proposing for the utility work side of the contract to be slip line the existing sanitary sewer and stormwater lines, along with rehabbing the existing manholes and drainage structures. After that, we would look at injecting high density polyurethane structural resin, HDPR, in areas that have been identified by Terracon to fill those voids. That stuff is similar to the foaming insulation you see where they inject it in and it puffs out. After that, we propose rehabbing the existing water main by using mechanical cleaning and spray in place epoxy lining. By doing that, we will also have to install temporary water mains to keep the service active for those businesses. that, you want to go over the scope of work for the street repair?
Yeah, we'll go over over that real quick.
Sorry, quick question. We injected something to help fix this problem a few years ago, as you referenced. Is that something?
We use flowable fill, which is,
Yeah, so what's the difference?
it's like a concrete slurry. It is gravity fed. We bored 4-inch holes in the areas that were identified back then and pumped that in. But it's not the same material. It can only flow. Where this stuff is pumped in and it expands on its own.
Okay.
Okay, back on the street work, what we're looking to try to do here is we want to, for safety, add a couple of mid-block pedestrian crossings. And by that, I mean putting in a raised concrete island on either side. And we have some slides that'll show a little bit better detail of this a little bit later in the presentation. But we'll put in a raised concrete median and narrow down the travel width of the pedestrian crossing. Right now, you're going from curb to curb, and we'll move that out to the edge of where the parking spaces are, approximately 8 to 9 feet off the edge of the curb. So that narrows it down about 18 to 19 feet. And then we'll also, right now, the truncated domes are back on the sidewalk when you come down the sidewalk. Now we'll put those truncated domes out at the edge of the parking spaces. And we'll also, in order to control drainage, we'll need to put in some flumes, and I'll get into some more details with that a little bit later on. But then once we get the bed block crossings put in, we'll also come back in, we'll mill the entire street. We're going to come back in and put in a 2-inch overlay over top of that, and then we'll come back in and put the stamped asphalt pavement markings back in, put back in all the parking spaces, and then we'll also come back in and put all the shower symbols that we had out there before, and the yield symbols, and then we're also going to increase the number of handicap spaces, and I'll get into that a little bit more in detail a little later.
On to the utility contract, a little additional details. We are first proposing slip lining the sanitary sewer and stormwater lines. Slip lining is basically a fiberglass bag that is blown through the existing mains with high pressure steam. It expands out and basically forms a new pipe inside that existing pipe. It is structurally sound, and it's a trenchless technology. Really, no excavation is needed unless there's some type of point repair needed identified as they're doing the work. It creates a watertight new pipe inside the existing pipe, and it is recommended prior to injecting the high density polyurethane structural resin due to the fact the resin expands, and we don't want that getting into the sewer, clogging the sewer lines up. And here's some examples of slip lining. The upper left photo is the same line as the lower left photo. This is a before photo and an after photo of the slip lining. And this is one of their rigs parked over a manhole. They take and place this bag in the line and get it started. Then they start injecting steam into the line, and that makes that bag swell up and adhere to the outside of the pipe or the inside of the pipe. And our estimated cost for slip lining the sanitary sewer and stormwater is $166,000, where $117,000 of that will come out of the utility fund and $49,000 out of the general fund.
That's all the way from 3rd to 5th.
3rd to 5th and 4th Street. And onto the high density polyurethane structural resin. We researched multiple options trying to figure out what would be the best way to fill these voids without just completely digging up the street. We came upon this project or this product through recommendation of other geotechnical engineers. They've been using this successfully on numerous projects across the state, including airports and I-95. Again, slip lining the manhole and slip lining and manhole rehabilitation must be completed prior to this, so we don't fill the sewer and stormwater lines up with this material.
You gonna slip line the ones on Clay down there Fifth too? Where there's a-
Yes, sir.
Just a quick minor question. So the slip lines, they should not be damaged whatsoever by HDPR when that expands? There should be, cool.
That's why we slip line it beforehand.
Yeah, just making sure. Okay.
As long as you don't have a crack in that pipe for that stuff to get in, you're good. So, and here's some examples of them actually performing the HDPR injection. They're estimating roughly 94 injection points along Clay Street to be able to fully get those voids.
Will they have to do radar again, or they'll just go off of the radar from previous?
They're gonna go off the previous radar. If we need to, we can come in behind them and perform another radar to see if there's any areas that are left out. And the estimated cost for the structural resin injection is $48,000 out of the general fund. And last, on the utility contract, we're looking at water line improvements. Like Mark had said, those lines are 100 years old. The existing cast iron lines that are out there now are subject to breaks or leaks, all the buildup. Anytime you go out there and resurface a street, you're shaking those old joints. You can cause potential leaks. Back when the Clay Street resurfaced in 2011, I know they had at least 2 leaks due to the work that was done. We're proposing going in and cleaning those pipes and installing an epoxy liner. It's going to take roughly 10 to 15 work days to complete the work. It will take out existing valves, so we'll have to replace those. Anything that's mechanical will have to be replaced. No hydrants will be in service during the installation of the epoxy lining, but the fire department, we've been speaking with them. They have a plan. Chief Lewis is here tonight to speak on that. And a temporary line will have to be installed to serve the residents. We're looking at a 2-inch line with 3/4-inch service lines coming off that. We'll have to pull out the existing water meters that are there and tie those services directly into the customer side of the meter setter. In doing so, we will not be able to bill those customers for water while this project's going on. You can see on the bottom photos examples of the temporary water service. This is a water service crossing the street where they put in. It looks basically like a speed bump with a trough cut out through it where they lay that line. And the procedures for the mechanical cleaning and epoxy lining, first of all, they'll install the temporary bypass service and take that line, the existing line, out of service where they can go in and video inspect that line and map it. Any repair points that they find will have to be done prior to them actually going in and cleaning the line. They got to get it to a point where that new epoxy will stick inside. So they'll go in and abrasively clean it and mechanically scrape that pipe until they get everything clean. Then they'll go in and line it with the epoxy liner, which they have a little robot with a spinning head on it that goes in and sprays that throughout the center of the pipe. And after that's complete, they'll test the new water line, disinfect it, and then put it back in service. And here's some information on the fire protection if you want to speak. Chief Lewis.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, as you are aware, the utility infrastructure has been a thorn in our side for about 20 years. We understand the need to get these replaced. Captain Hicks has wrote an IEP. He's got an incident action plan in place for when the water line goes out of service. We'll do some in-service training with the suppression crews to handle any type of emergency that we may have on Clay 4th and 5th.
And the time frame again, how long would it be out of service, did you say?
Estimate 10 to 15 working days.
Okay.
And our estimated costs for the water line improvements are $313,000 coming out of the utility fund.
All right, back to the streets. Which one? Yeah, you help me out there, big guy. Once we get all this infrastructure that Kyle has just laid out for us, we're going to come back in, as I said earlier, we're going to put in the bulb outs for both streets, one the mid block of Clay and the other one at 4th, and put that in. We'll have the flume that we talked about and the truncated domes that we spoke about a little bit earlier. And also we had coordinated with staff, with Ashley and the planning department, the bicycle and pedestrian transportation downtown vision plan. And we tried to incorporate all the practical improvements that was listed out in that plan. As far as the street work, we do have 2 existing handicap spaces. One is located on the east side of 4th Street at Center Street intersection. We have one at the east side of 5th Street north of the Clay Street intersection. And we're proposing to put in 3 additional handicap spaces. One is at the north side of Clay Street at 3rd Street intersection. One is on the south side of Clay Street east of the mid-block crossing. And then the last one will be on the south side of Clay Street east of the 4th Street intersection. And we've got those laid out here on the map. And all these improvements will be done in the fiscal year 23-24. And this here is our mid-block crossing for Clay Street. And again, you can see where the crosswalk is coming all the way across from the curb to curb. And here, this red, we've kind of highlighted the red over here on the proposed. That's the distance we'll be shortening that by. And you can see the concrete, raised concrete medians that we put in right there. And then we'll have to put in a flume to address the drainage. And that will consist of a metal plate about a 1/2 inch thick, 3/8 to a 1/2 inch thick, on top of the curb that will be 2 feet out from the face of the curb now. And we'll have to remove that granite curb and put in some concrete curb so it'll all be level and smooth. And we take out all those imperfections. And then we will slope from the edge of the flume, that metal grate, back down to the edge of the existing pavement there at the red line. Is there any questions on any of that?
The gray area on either side of the existing crosswalk, which is not big enough to be a parking space, how is that designated today? Does that?
It is the parking space terminates right there at those corners.
Right.
And there, and the other one over there, like that. And so it allows people to be able to pull in and pull out at that space. And so what we'll be doing is over here in the proposed, we'll be adding raised concrete. We've put a radius on it at each corner.
Right, okay.
So that cars can get in and out of that. And that helps promote the pedestrian safety.
It is presently just pavement, asphalt.
That's right.
There's no lines, but you can't, it's not enough space to park a car.
Right, you just, yeah. Okay.
It's like, I want to say 8 to 10 feet over here on Clay Street. It's a little bit less than that over on 4th Street. And this is the one for 4th Street right now. We got the 2 white lines that come across. We have steps on the west side of 4th Street, so that cannot be an ADA compliant crosswalk. But we are going to go ahead and still put in the flumes and the raised islands, and then we'll slope back down on either side to make it a little better for folks to be able to get in and maneuver. But you will have those 2 steps. We're not planning on doing anything to those. And again, our estimated cost for doing the milling, the stamped asphalt, the pavement markings and everything is $473,000, and all that will be coming out of the general fund. I didn't mention, but when we did the layout for the parking spaces, kind of what we used as the guide is the North Carolina Building Code. And typically the building code requires access to from a parking space to an entrance of a building of approximately 200 feet. And we tried to use that as a guide. So that's the reason why we put them near the intersections and the mid-block crossings. Plus, we had one at 4th Street that was at the existing corner, and then the one at on 5th Street is just a little bit north of the intersection there. That's a T intersection for the road, and of course, it's got the driveway going into the townhomes over there. Okay. Let's see. I believe that was about it, wasn't it? We do have the picture. We had the summary statement. I'll let you go over the utility summary.
All right. Again, for the utility side, we're looking at slip line and sewer, sanitary sewer and stormwater lines. We're doing that in order to seal any cracks and keep reduced I&I and keep the HDPR from entering the sewer and stormwater lines. We're going in and injecting the high density polyurethane structural resin to address any of the voids that we found under Clay Street. And we're using the water line improvements as a preventative measure to allow increased fire protection, water quality, it avoid any potential future leaks and breaks in the area. And for the street resurfacing,
Yeah, go ahead.
Clay.
Again, we've covered that, I believe, on that. So let's go to the next slide, and then Preston, can you zoom in there at that first corner? We'll show them where that parking space is. Top one. We have one that we're putting in over here at this side right here. This is the first one I mentioned. And the second one is down here at that crossing there. And then the third one will be on down on Clay Street. We got to come back over here. That was a match line. We've got one here. And then if you come on back over and scroll a little bit, this is where this other space is right up in here. It's just a little bit north of that crosswalk. And then we also have one on, well, this is the Sharrow. And this is what we're talking about doing here to make this more visible, is putting the city's green. That may not show it, but this is going to be the city green in your logo with the Sharrow symbol here on the black asphalt. We hope that that will make that more visible for the bicyclists. And the next slide, which one? This. And this one over here is where the existing space, I got to get my bearings, back over here. This is where the existing space is now at the corner of Center and 4th. And by this map, I will just point out that the green line is the sewer, the blue line is the water, and that's where we'll be doing that. And the red is the storm drain. You can see a little bit of the red. Where'd it go? Whoops. There, this is the red line. These here are the storm drain lines that we're talking about doing for that as well. Okay, and then, yep, you had me there, didn't you? Okay, what we're looking at for the total cost of everything is basically going to be $1 million. We're talking about 432 out of the utility fund and 568 out of the general fund.
You describe these numbers as estimates, and we haven't bid yet, and I know estimating can be very difficult. Can you just comment on, could these estimates be way off? And if they were way off, I'm sure they'd end up being more, not less.
The bidding environment is substantially changed. I know, Kyle.
I've actually reached out to some contractors in the area and had them come out and take a look at things and give us what an estimate would be for each of the water, the sewer, and the HDPR.
Also, if we have consensus from council on this plan of action, we plan to immediately move as early as tomorrow to begin the bidding process to come back in January with bids. So we're going to try to capitalize on these estimates and keep it in a close time frame.
I will say also, we've done an estimate on what it would be just to do a direct replacement for the water and sewer, and you're looking at over $1.5 million just for those two, nothing else.
When you say that, you're talking about trenching and recompacting and putting in new water lines?
Yes.
It's only $500,000 more? That's a lot of money, but
500,000 more, that's just the water and sewer. That doesn't count anything else we're talking about, not the resurface contract or anything.
I was gonna ask what the cost comparison was of just trenching the whole thing and putting in new stuff. But
So I'll speak on this. One thing we do have concern with trenching is we feel like the concrete base that was put in 1921 is the actual base. So going forward, we want to minimize anytime we cut through that base, even though we're doing the pressurized fill HDP. I forget the last letter, but we want to minimize that. So we feel like if we from the research, when the street was milled in 2011, that's when water lines began to leak because of their age, the machinery on it, cuts occurred in that. We think that may have increased this pace of this problem of settlement. So our perspective is maintaining a concrete base is the best plan of action right now, whereas trenching it would be involved full replacement and also additional cuts in it. And I will add the methods the Public Utilities Director is sharing. The reason we have them so quickly is we were previously studying doing this type of endeavors underneath the railroad and underneath the interstate to preserve those lines for an extended period of time.
Go ahead.
Trenching would also shut down the road for a much longer period of time to all traffic during the day, during the night, everything.
That's exactly what I was going to ask. And I guess what would be the impact if we move forward with the proposal? How much downtime will there be for the road, if any?
We're proposing doing most of this work at night, trying to minimize any impacts to the road or the businesses as much as possible.
Whereas trenching, we're done for several months at
Yes,
best.
months. I mean, we're for the sewer and stormwater work, couple weeks worth. Same thing with the water. It's minimal time compared to replacement.
well, my concern is that we fix it.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm assuming our anticipation is this is a permanent fix for another 100 years. But
That is our hope. Basically, we are making new utility lines from the inside. So then if there's the concern about the pressurized resin getting into lines, the inside has a new liner, hence it cannot get through the cracks. It may fill up the cracks on the outside, which again is a positive if it were to occur, but it won't be a case of the resin gets into a sewer line, causes backups, or gets into a stormwater line and causes flooding.
well, I'd rather shut the road down for 3 weeks now than have to go through this again in 10 years, which is we've been dealing with this issue on Clay Street on and off for a pretty good while.
Any other questions? All right.
This has a fairly significant impact to the downtown business owners. I know you're going to have an informational meeting with them next week. Is that right? I would, or it's later this week. Yeah, it is later this week. I would encourage you, I'm not sure exactly what slides you're going to use, but I would encourage you to really focus. This is very technical and very helpful, but a lot of this may be not what they need to know. It's more, how does this impact me? And I would just try to make it as simple and as clear for their daily life as possible, because I mean, this is their livelihood.
And while we are having the info sessions that DMDC is hosting for us, we also realize, and you'll see it on the street repair, there's going to be additional info sessions and information passed out. This approach will occur in phases. No two projects or more are going to be done at the same time. It'll be done individual. So,
good point.
We also plan to have in the contract documents requirements that they coordinate weekly with the property owners, and we're going to try to get information. I've talked with Barbara about trying to get a list of all the property owners' names and business owners' names, and such that we can be in contact with them and let them know what's going to be going on and when.
And when the executive director of DMDC and the utility director and the PIO visited last week to pass out a flyer for the upcoming meetings on the 9th and the 10th, they also collected hours of operation from those that were either visible or there, so we can coordinate with that as well. One of the reasons with feedback from our knowledge and feedback from the DMDC executive director is our hope is a nighttime meeting and an early morning meeting fits the time frame of businesses that are open during predominantly in daytime hours and those that are open extended periods in the evening.
But, any other questions?
Mr. Mayor, just to be sure I follow this in one regard, the total impact on regular parking spaces is just -3 for the conversion to handicap.
The existing spaces will be converted over to handicap.
Those three, but
Those
everything
three.
else, the
Yes, sir.
number remains the
That
same.
remains the same.
And
There's,
there are 2 existing handicap, which we
yes,
maintain,
we'll maintain.
and then 3 additional. Okay. And
That'll help a lot.
How many there are?
81.
81 regular.
Well, yeah, I had, hold on, I got that list right here. Let's see here. I remember the 81, and I've had them actually broken down by.
That's right. The basic question is, it's 81 total that we
Mhm.
start from, or that is left after?
Be 81 starting from and 81 when we get through, but it's a total of, you got 79 regular and 2 handicap, and so when we get through, we're gonna have 76 and 5. And that's between Clay, that's on Clay from 3rd to 4th and 4th to 5th, and then on 4th Street, Center to Clay, and then there's also 10 spaces north of Clay Street to the north on the east side. You got those that are perpendicular. There's 10 parking spaces in there that are perpendicular.
All right. Chuck?
Yes, we're gonna turn this over to Chuck now.
Evening, Mayor, Council. So this is somewhat of a continuation of what they presented. What they showed you in great detail was the long-term solution. What I'm presenting is our short-term temporary holiday street repair. So you saw this slide before, the cause of many of the asphalt patches along West Clay Street are the voids that Kyle and Mark mentioned. The one in question, the one we've been watching on a regular basis from Public Works standpoint, is that one closer to North 3rd Street. And I won't go through this. They've already presented most of that. So what we're proposing to do is, this is again, taking care of the asphalt patches. Public Works crews have been monitoring on a week-to-week basis. We're adding asphalt as we need to. So for a more permanent temporary, since they'll come back and remove it, we're proposing to mill out the middle third of West Clay Street from North 3rd to North 4th. We would leave the pavement markings pretty much in place. We won't want to come back and stripe anything, but those yellow lines show about approximately where we would mill the street up, take those patches out that are somewhat of a issue with driving. Rideability is a concern along that road, as I know you've driven that road, but also pedestrians. We're watching it closely because of the asphalt may just create a little bit of a ridge where if a pedestrian tries to cross there, it may be a tripping hazard for them. So we're monitoring that. But this is going to be on a grander scale than what Public Works staff can do out there. So we would mill up the middle third of that where those yellow lines are shown approximately. As I mentioned, the contractor and Preston said, we actually already have contracts in place and the contractor is ready to go, weather permitting, a week from today. We will perform, or actually we will have to close West Clay Street to traffic for that one day. from 3rd to 4th for them to get in there and perform the milling operation like as they need to, and then pave back. It would be very dangerous to have try to have that road open to traffic, but they can also expedite their activity, their construction activity, by closing that one block. The sidewalks would remain open to pedestrians to reach the downtown businesses.
I appreciate you guys doing that on a Monday because a lot of the storefronts are closed on Monday.
And that's why we chose Monday. Hopefully, I looked ahead already. Looks like weather's going to be favorable for us if it holds out. So yes, thank you for that. The contractor performed milling operations in the middle third of clay, and we're basically cutting a groove in the road, basically down to that concrete layer that you saw, and we're just going to pave it right back. So essentially what we're doing is creating a big patch that'll be even in West Clay Street. Definitely improve rideability and eliminate these tripping hazards. The price that we have is based on that. It could fluctuate depending on what we find when we start the milling operation, and the paving operation, depending on the depth, is right around $15,000, and that could fluctuate just a little bit.
So this patch that you'll be creating will encompass several patches that are already on the street and clean that up.
Yes. Yes.
As a temporary fix to get us through the holiday season and et cetera.
Exactly.
That's wise.
Any questions about that?
Is it not risky to do that before you've got the action replaced? Line slip sleeve?
So what we're crossing our fingers what the plan is, because we do have the photographs that you saw that show the asphalt layer sitting on top of that concrete layer. Thank you. So what we're planning on doing is milling it down just above that concrete layer and kind of scraping that asphalt layer off that concrete layer. That concrete layer, as you can see right there, is actually bridging over these small voids that we have. So our intent is not to impact that concrete layer. We can just kind of skim that asphalt off of it and pave it back without, damaging anything, Kyle's water lines or anything like that. We should be in good shape, which I think the operation we're planning should be fine.
I was thinking more about the vibration, but.
And to be honest, it can be a concern with 100-year-old lines. This short-term solution to take care of the patching, could cause us some headaches with the utilities, but we're going to do our best to make that not happen.
We would define it as a calculated risk. Admittedly, it is a risk, but we have tried to minimize the risk of it.
And to that point too, the milling operation, it is going to cause some vibration, but if we were to bring our city crews in there with jackhammers and, that type of thing, that would be probably much more disruptive at this point.
Are we concerned about settling at all or anything like that after this big old patch is installed?
That could be a possibility. That's why I said the asphalt tonnage could fluctuate if that concrete layer were to settle an inch or two or whatever, we're adding more asphalt in there to bring it back up to grade.
It's also the reason we call it a temporary 2022 holiday solution, because we're not sure how long it will last.
That is helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. With the long-term solution in sight, then I think this is a good short-term solution for us.
So I will add, we have tried to give equal consideration to considering business/citizens, inconvenience, age of infrastructure, costs, risk, timeframes, and overall comparative analysis of forthcoming projects and endeavors for the city along with this endeavor.
As I said, we've got contracts in place, so we're ready to move forward right now. So come 7:30 Monday morning, we'll have crews out there blocking off streets and getting ready for all this.
I'm glad we have a PIO in place to help with this project. This is a great thing for her to cut her teeth on.
She's been great to work with.
Because there's going to be a lot of public misunderstanding about what we're doing here and why would we be ripping up the street right before the holidays when we're actually trying to help with the holidays, but people will misunderstand that, et cetera, et cetera.
When we're done with this, the ride quality of this road is going to be so much better.
Yeah.
So we also have a Christmas parade coming up with probably hundreds to maybe 1,000 people walking straight down the middle of that street. A lot of young people. So our hope was to get this in, this temporary patch before the holiday season and before the Christmas parade.
Thank you.
All right, council, what's the pleasure?
I'd like to make a motion to proceed with the advertising for utility and street contracts per schedule in PowerPoint presentation and making temporary street repairs as needed by public works departments.
Second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I just want to thank the city for all the hard work that's gone into preparing for this. I know none of us really want to do this, but we clearly have to.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Mr. Davis.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Aaron Davis with the Recreation and Parks Department. I'm here in partnership with Destination Downtown Mebane to request to close down 4th Street in downtown Mebane between Center and Clay Street for the 19th of November during the hometown holiday celebration. I've provided details for you, but wanted to go a little bit further. We had a meeting today, and I was informed that the increase in vendors for the Makers Market portion of this holiday event downtown is moving from about 25 vendors to about 70. So quite an increase. Last year, for the first time, the city partnered with this program and provided a movie in the parking lot next to the Dollar General and the Pocket Park. Was not a great fit as the vendors were kind of closing up shop and tearing down. We approached Destination Downtown Mebane about maybe having the movie earlier before the tree lighting ceremony. And they agreed and would like, along with the city, to be able to close down that 4th Street block so that we can have the movie there, along with other vendors that will be more geared towards the children and some crafters and things like that. Again, some other things going on that day, along with the Makers Market and the movie. Santa will hopefully be in Mebane that day, making his appearance at the MAC and then moving to downtown for hometown holidays. And then we'll have some musical entertainment near the movie screen area. And then once the movie is complete, we'll try to move everyone down to the tree lighting ceremony. So we're just requesting to close down that block for the day so that we can fit all the vendors and people to have a wonderful celebration.
Just curious, this is Destination Downtown. Does DMDC partner in this, or how does all that work?
I think that they're certainly a partner within, but it is mainly a Destination Downtown event. But I think what we're finding is that there's a lot of different helpers in these downtown events, which is wonderful.
Great.
All right, any further questions?
Make a motion, we let them close the road on November 19th.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Wonderful, thank you. My next agenda item is to make appointments to the Recreation and Parks Advocacy Commission for 2023. If you remember, 3 years ago, we started with staggered years of service on that commission. We are looking for 2 appointments for this next year. You've been provided with 6 individuals who have turned in applications, and we are looking for 2 selections from council tonight.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to nominate Jesse Whitaker, who's current chair, and Lori Sawyer as a new member.
All right, we have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Ombe.
Good evening. We currently have an opening on the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission.
for a position to represent the Orange County part of Mebane, either those living in the city or the extraterritorial jurisdiction. The position was advertised beginning in August, and we received 2 applications with only one being eligible. The other applicant lives in Alamance County.
Is that the James Allen?
That's
Yeah,
correct. Yes.
I'll make a motion. We
All right.
appoint James Allen.
All right, we have a motion.
I'll second that.
Got a second? Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Can I just ask one question? When we get a application that's not eligible, like someone doesn't give us their first name, or is that communicated back to them in case they want to resubmit before the deadline, or we just take them like they are?
I'll let Mr. Davis speak on that particular issue, but I know the development director and others do follow up with them, try to get a complete application, but.
I did follow up with the one applicant we had and advised the individual that there were RPAC openings and that the BPAC would also have more openings coming up in January and February.
Perfect.
Yes, sir. Same thing. We have reached out and request the complete application in case we don't get everything that we're looking for.
We tell them we don't accept people that don't have first names or something like that.
All right, reminder, city office is going to be closed Friday for Veterans Day and Thursday, the 24th and 25th for Thanksgiving holiday. Remember to vote tomorrow if you haven't already. I hope all of y'all have voted. It'll be slim tomorrow, so I can vote. If not, nothing else before the council, meeting's adjourned.
Thanks, sir.
I got it, Stephanie.
Wonderful. You guys together? Sure.